my name is Tavia Crumpler, and if you messed that up, don't worry about it. We're both used to our names being messed up quite a bit, so we answer just about anything close. I am a family and community engagement as well as a learning supports coach for Scholastic. I have worked extensively in Alabama. I'm not sure Alex City was part of the cohort of schools that we did, but we worked with the State Department for 5 or 6 years with our learning supports framework, and I'm happy to be back again doing family and community engagement work with you all. I may have met on the phone and email with a few of you. We tried to do a little update a couple of years ago with you guys. So if we interchanged an email, please let me know so I can put a name with a face. But family engagement is near and dear to my heart because, and first of all, thank you parents for being here because you are a critical element to a full partnership team, and we're excited that you're here. But, you know, trust is a big thing, and trust is hard to develop. And this framework, we'll call it, this framework really does help us to see all the moving parts that are necessary to build this great partnership. And we'll go over the framework here shortly. But I hope that you leave here after these 3 days excited about what you have learned. And this is a very interactive training. And we were talking today. I prefer to have, well, it's a formal training. I prefer it to be as informal as we can be because you all learn from each other much more than you learn from us. And so participation is going to be expected. And I hope that you leave here today with some tips and strategies that you can implement. So before I move on, I'd like to Maricel to introduce herself. She's our co-facilitator today.
Thank you. So, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
My name is Maricel Schweitzer, and before, the first thing that I like to do all the time is to tell you that I am from Venezuela. That's the reason for my accent, because I don't want you to be wondering, wow, she sounds like she's from New York, or she sounds like
You're not from Alabama?
Yeah, she sounds Latina, but it doesn't sound like Mexican, you know? So I'm from Venezuela. That's the reason for this beautiful accent. So I've been in the field of education for about 20 years. I was a bilingual teacher, special education teacher, reading coach, data coach, curriculum instruction specialist, district administrator, and also a consultant. And right now I'm teaching at a bilingual university in Orlando, and also work for Scholastic. But one of the things that really changed my life as a teacher and that made me fall in love with family engagement was in 2007 when I was a reading coach. Our school was a failing school in the only failing district in Arizona. Only one failing district, failing school. We had only 2% of the students at grade level. We put in place some principles that we're going to talk about shortly, and we moved those students from 2% to 72% of the students at grade level in 3 years. Wow. It was amazing. It was an amazing job. So I realized how important it was, family engagement, at that time. And I'm glad that you took that decision to be here and spend these 3 days, because it's really going, if you put it in place the way it's supposed to be, it's going to change your life. It's going to make things easier, and it's going to change the life of your students too. So we're here and ready to go.
Happy to be here, yeah. I forgot to mention, I'm a recovering State Department employee, so give me a little grace if you would. No, so first of all, we saw the parents in the room. Give me one more hands up again, Stacy. Great, again, thank you very much. Where are our elementary schools? Here. This is the trouble one, right? And then the middle school here, right? And this is the high school. Y'all are gonna love the pipe cleaner activity that we have to do later today. District folks back here, right? Parent coordinators? Do you have?
There's one for
Liaison.
each.
Liaison, sorry. Yeah. Be proud. Come on, get that hand up there. Anybody else? I think that probably would cover it all. Principals?
We got AP.
Assistant principal? Okay. Yeah, y'all are worse than the parent liaison. My building's on fire for 3 days and I'm gonna be sitting here, right? Yeah. Don't hate me for that, hate Chris for
We
that.
have some teachers, EL, and different teachers and counselors too.
Perfect. Let me see our counselors. And classroom teachers. Thank you for what you do.
It should be yay.
Yeah, I know. Boy, what you guys have been through and your families have been through in the last 20 months. What does it feel like to be sitting here? Is this like, how many in-person trainings have you guys had? This is it? First one, a few, maybe getting back to school? Good. All right. Well, again, welcome. On your table should be one for everyone. I'll go over the binder shortly, but there's a belief survey. Do not put your name on this. This is going to be completely anonymous. If you put your name on it already, I can give you another one. I want this to be completely anonymous so that you will be completely honest. Okay? Be ridiculously honest when you answer these questions, and when you're finished, fold it in half and put them all, everyone put them in the center or somewhere on your table together. We'll just stack them up together. So, answer the questions. Strongly agree, agree, disagree, and strongly disagree. Fold it in half when you're done and put it in the middle of the table. Just saying. OCD here. Maybe not.
She just nominated you.
We'll do therapy sessions for you OCD people at the end, okay?
Okay,
I can
my
say
husband says it's O, I mean it's CDO.
Did y'all hear that?
CDO.
OCD, right? Her husband says it has to be CDO because it's gotta be in alphabetical order. Everybody done? All right, we're gonna come back to that, so let's, all you OCD people, just leave it alone, okay? All right, our learning outcomes today. I'm gonna give you just a second to look at that. You wanna read that first one for me? Loud and proud.
Participants will understand the link between family and community engagement and student achievement and school improvement.
You wanna read number 2?
Participants will begin to develop and assess basically when examine the family partnership work.
Number 3.
Participants will know how to introduce what it means to family engagement to student learning and development and school improvement.
What resonates with you about these outcomes? Anything pop out? It is linked to student achievement. Yes, ma'am. What else?
You must participate.
Actively be engaged.
strength-based lens.
So often, we take the deficit approach, right? We wanna begin that mindset shift to a strength-based approach. I facilitated a session for some school board members and superintendents in Missouri last week, and we did an activity to think about some successes, and one of the ladies said, the funk is so heavy, it is so hard to think about the positive, that we have been just overcome with this weight the last 20 plus months. So I'd ask you to keep that strength-based approach or that strength-based lens in the front of your minds. Anybody else? Something stick out?
Can I just say something off of what you just said?
Yeah.
There's a commercial on now, and they always say, what's strong about me, or what's strong with me, or something. And they're putting strong for wrong. And so many times we think about, what's wrong with this picture? Well, I think we should start thinking about what's strong about our family and community engagement, instead of what's wrong with it.
Yeah.
Just, like you said, change that mindset, reframe how we're thinking about it.
Thank you for that. I haven't seen that commercial, but I'm
I've
gonna
seen
be
it
on the
20
look.
times.
Showing
Watch Hallmark.
Hallmark will hold you down.
Yeah.
80% is encouragement, 20% is correction. So it's easier to correct or say you need to fix this or do this. If I say, hey, I like your hair, I like what you're doing, and then I can do the correction portion. So the 80-20, 80% encouragement, you're doing this great,
Yeah.
and 20%, hey, we need to work on that.
Yeah, we gotta do a little bit better. Yeah, good. I think the other thing that I think about when I read this is you guys are here for a reason, right? It is a team approach. Family engagement does not lie on top of the principal or the assistant principal or the parent liaison. It is a team approach. And you have a responsibility to take what you learn back to your school community. And I want you to think about, we're gonna be doing a lot of activities today, and a lot of what we do is to kind of model for you good ways, research-based, evidence-based ways that help build partnerships, help open up, our spirits to be able to want to collaborate with one another. So think about how it is that you're going to take this back to your school community and build off that. And if there's, and like Dr. Price said, we've condensed this into boom, boom, boom. Normally we like to have a little bit of time in there. So I want to let you know that both Marisol and I are available. So if you're having trouble implementing some things, I want you to feel comfortable in contacting us with that, okay? But strength-based lens, it's linked to student achievement, and how are we going to take this back so that this is sustainable? Dr. Price also said we did this once before and we had a lot of movement and it just kind of fell off. We want to build that culture, right? So that this is sustainable. I just thought of something that I read in an article about teachers coming back and just all the weight that you have on your shoulders right now. And people will say to you, you can do this hard thing, right? Well, I would say we can sustain this work, right? Not do this hard thing, because that to me seems temporary, but how are we going to sustain it, okay? So 3 really big chunks of work that we'd like to get to today. All right. Here's what you need to know, how the day is going to play out. 3 days back to back. Can I say suck? Sucks sitting here that long, so forgive me if it is inappropriate, and forgive me, not if it is. But, so you'll get a break about 9:30, 9:45. We're gonna shoot to go to lunch at 11:30 for about an hour, and then we'll come back. You'll get an afternoon break, and then we'll wrap this up at 3, right? We're wrapping it up at 3. Okay. Here's what we're gonna talk about. Why are we here? Why are you here? Other than you were voluntold. Don't answer that, because I've already laid that out. Why are you here? Anybody want to share?
I can speak for my husband and I. We are pastors here in Alex City, and everything that we do it to better our community. We want to be here to show our community that we support them, that we pray for them, and that we're going to do everything we can do to help, from hospitals to schools to whatever we can do.
Help be a bridge. Great. Thank you. Appreciate that.
I'm here as representative of Radney because I would love to have our parents in the building and not just being in the building, but be engaged. I want them to understand and take part and be active participants in their students' education.
Thank you. Excellent. It's a great culture to build as a leader in your school.
Well, I'm here because I started reading a book and I was approached my principal and I was like, you know, we think the parents don't want to be involved, and I don't think that's it at all. I think it's they want to, but they don't know how. And they don't understand a lot of our lingo, and we've got to bring things down, and I'm like her, I want our parents back in our schools and make them feel welcome.
Yeah. And we're going to talk about the dual capacity building framework, so I don't want to steal the thunder on that, but it's not just we have to help them learn how to be comfortable in our buildings. We have to learn how, as educators, how to make that relationship happen, right? It's a two-way street. Good, thank you. What book?
It's on poverty. My principal handed it to me and said, read this. But it's poverty, it's a red book.
Teaching with Poverty in
That's
Mind
it.
by Eric
That's
Gibson.
it.
I love that book. Don't you love that emotional keyboard? That's fantastic. You're gonna get me off on a tangent. Yes. Sorry.
Well, as a parent, just listening, we it's not that we don't want to be involved. There's a lot of things that we don't know until boom, at the last minute. So I want to be here to bridge the gap between the communication, and then when you say evidence-based, ask us before you just, you shouldn't just assume. You should just ask the parents what it is we need in order to make the relationships better.
Right.
Fantastic.
That's, I'm so glad that you're here because that communicate, we are so used, I left federal prison, not as an inmate, but I worked there.
Clarify that.
When I was released, I went back to education, and what I saw was, and I told Chris this early on, what I saw was what happens on our deepest end when systems fail, right? We're not responsible for meeting every need of a child. But the Carnegie Task Force, there's a quote that said, we're not responsible for meeting every need of the child, but when the need impacts learning, we have to step up to the plate. And when I went from corrections back to education, I had to learn a whole new language again. And so you said lingo and you said communication. We are so used to just spitting out all the mess that we have to talk about. It didn't make any sense for people who are not in that world every day. And so keeping that lens also in your mind of communication.
Absolutely.
And I love that you said assumptions as well. So thank you for that. Anybody else? Why are you here?
Got one right here.
Yeah.
I will say, as another parent, and coming from two worlds of it, I have a special needs kid and a neurotypical kid. That's what you're supposed to say, I guess. But seeing how big of a difference there is, especially in communication, you have a lot of parents that come to you as this unofficial person because they know that you have a big mouth and you're the one that'll speak up, but they won't. But they're genuinely scared.
Yeah.
Or they've had really bad experiences. And they don't know what to do. They're scared they're going to have some kind of backlash from it.
Their kid will be,
Yeah, that their kid gets punished for it.
Yeah.
So yeah, there has to be, like I said, I've had just huge differences in being able to go to one school and being able to go to the other and what you get versus what program, I guess, we're talking about.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, and leaders, I hope you guys are listening to what families have to say today, and I want you guys to feel comfortable in saying, the stuff that's hard, the stuff that we need to make better. Good deal. Thank you. And one thing that you said that resonated with me is, so we've got feeder patterns here, right? Your elementary school, and I like kind of how it's set up, because it's like, boop, boop, right? That's how it works. There should be consistency, right? And if your teams are not talking, right? If you're not elementary working with your middle school you're not working, I mean, because it's, you help get the graduation rate, right? You start it off, you lay the foundation, and we've got to have those communication streams so that families are not just, oh my God, you know, I've got a kid in middle school and a kid in elementary school and a kid in high school, and everything is different. And I'm not saying you have to be all that synchronous, but there needs to be some communication and some consistency. And district guys, you can help with that.
You know, even in the simplicity of, we have, 2 at Jim Pearson this year, and we have 1 at Radney. And then we were subbing at the middle school quite a bit. My husband and I like to dress up. I mean, we still do. We dress up for Read Across America Week, and we go to the elementary schools and read to the kids, and we go to daycares and different things. But in those spirit weeks, we want to dress up with the kids, whether we're at Jim Pearson or whether we're at the middle school. We didn't do so much at the middle school because we thought these kids kind of feel like they're too old for that, so that might not go over well with them. But they're even on different days, you know, like Radney and the middle school were on the same day pattern of like, today is wear your boots, today is wear red, today, you know.
Yeah.
But then Jim Pearson is on a totally different day, so as a parent at home, I'm like, oh my gosh, I've got to get all this together tonight and make sure they're wearing the right thing today, because my kids care. And, you know, even something as simple as that, you know, just talking about it with the admin, hey, what are y'all doing for Red Ribbon Week? Or what are y'all doing for Homecoming Week? Like, what are some things we can do as a community that would make it stronger? You know, that may not seem like a big deal to admin or to, you know, some of the staff, but it's a big deal to the parents who are at home, who come home from work, and then they're having to do homework and dinner and trying to plan out the next day and all
in
that.
that short period.
So, I mean, there really is some communication, I think, that could happen in that manner. And I will say, we've only been here 4 years, and the atmosphere of each school that we've been in, we haven't really got to have a lot of interaction at the high school yet, so I have 0 to say about the high school. But the interaction that we have felt, the atmosphere we have felt, the welcome that we have felt in each school has been very different. We didn't feel extremely welcomed when we first moved here because nobody knew us. But some of that lies in who your front desk person is. And if they're not sociable and kind and easy to greet, then it's going to make it really hard for a parent to even want to approach the school. And so I've had lots of parents ask me, because we are at the schools a whole lot. We have been since we moved here. And I've had a lot of parents ask me, how did you and your husband get so plugged in the schools? And I told them, we went and we swept the floors. We went to classrooms and asked if teachers needed copies made every day. We did snack duty at Jim Pearson when they had laid off a lot of their parapros and people who were doing some of those extra jobs. You know, being willing to serve, but that word that you said in the very beginning of trust, we had to build that trust in the relationship with some of the people and the staff in the school before we could do that. I know today, I can go into Jim Pearson and I can go into middle school, and I have no children at the middle school. But I know that those 2 schools, if I wanted to go and work today, I could go and say, hey, I'm here, what can I do? Whether I'm being paid as a sub or whether I'm being there as a volunteer. The atmosphere in those 2 schools has been extremely welcoming to our family, and we're so grateful for that.
Thank you for sharing that.
So, and it's not that we're not welcome in the other 2 schools, like with Radney where Evelise is, and even at Stevens where I've subbed, but I can say while my child was at Stevens, we didn't feel that the door was open for us to be there. So I didn't volunteer there a whole lot. We didn't really have any relationship with the staff of Stevens, and it was not really a welcoming environment. And I don't mean that in a negative way.
No.
Just, I think that it's good for you to hear. Because we do have parents that want to be involved, as Ms. Askew has shared, and they don't feel like they can. And even at Radney, you know, I've been there a few times now. I haven't gotten to be there as often as I would like. Miss Morgan has always been very welcoming, but there have been days that she may not have been there that I've come up to do something or to volunteer for PTO or things of that nature, and it feels like every time I come, I'm having to reintroduce myself. And I know that's because I'm not there all the time, but I've also subbed there 2 days now. So it almost feels like there's this door or this wall of, I don't know, you don't come in, you know? And I don't think that maybe that's the approach that they mean to come across with.
And it gets back to
in the
trust, maybe,
office.
like what you said.
But
Yeah.
it's almost as if, and this is something that as PTO parents, Casey Lambert and I have discussed. Casey is an excellent leader. She's not here today. I don't know why she's not, but I expected her to be here today. She does a great job of including all parents. It's not a my for and no more. And I love that about her, and I anticipate and expect to do the same when I take that leadership role at Jim Pearson next year. We as parents also have to do better in those parent organizations to make sure we're not excluding people because we don't really know them. And you know, we did something for Radney last month or the month before, and a statement was made, well, the 4 of us can handle it. And I said, no. Why did we have parents sign up for PTO if it's only gonna be the 4 of us doing the work all the time? It can't be that way. It has to be inclusive if we want the parents to be involved.
I should have had you open up because you have said a lot of things that, what's your name? I'm sorry, I haven't looked.
Valerie.
Valerie. Thank you, Valerie. You've said a lot of things that we're gonna touch on today, and we will get to the learning climate in a minute, and I'm so glad that you feel, you know, comfortable expressing your truth there because we can't grow without it. But you said a lot of things that we're going to touch on today and throughout the next 2 days. And as PTO participants or leaders, I think it's important these same concepts get embedded into the work that you're doing to help bridge those partnerships in support of our students. Dr. Press, did you want to say something?
I did. I had 2 things to say to sort of piggybacking off of Valerie. First thing I want to say is to the school employees and representatives in here. I want to thank you parents for being as honest as you have been. And I want to say to our school employees, let's not be defensive, okay? Let's be as open and honest as our parents have been. And when you ask why are we here, I'm going to tell you why I'm here. When we looked at the data, and you know, that is like #1 part of my job is looking at this data and looking at all the variables and what impacts this. All the research that I've read, and especially we go back to poverty, it talks about parental involvement. People that are successful from poverty are successful because of a person, and it's usually a person in a school that has been with them, but also to layer on top of that is because of parental and family support and engagement through that school. So that's one thing I wanted to say. The other thing I wanted to say is that she described a relationship that she has forged with the school. Again, going back to the research that I've read about, and I do a lot with poverty because we are a high poverty district. Schools should be forging relationships with parents.
Yes.
The parents they send us their babies. They trust us with their babies to do the best. So we should be forging those relationships. So I'm not coming down, but I'm just saying, this is not Vegas. What happens in here doesn't stay in here. We want it to go back out to everywhere, and we want it to be impactful. So, and you know, parents, please continue to be honest, but schools, let's be honest too. Because I'm gonna tell you, you know, from up here, we're not doing it right. We're not doing it right, okay? And we're here because we want to do it right. We want to do it right, but the other thing, and I saw this on a Christmas movie, sometimes what we want is not what we need.
Turn the Hallmark off.
Look, I tell my kids, you better be glad I listen to Christmas music some days. But again, what I say is, you know, a lot of times we're doing what we want to do, it's not what we need to do. So let's be thank you parents for being so honest and when she was talking, I'm like, she could have did that.
I know, right?
It's like you've been through the training. But again, you know, let's be honest and let's always remember that if it wasn't for the parents, we wouldn't have a job. We wouldn't have a job. So again, I want to thank the parents for being honest, and I want to say as administrators, as teachers, as counselors, as whomever, you know, I hope you wore your steel-toed shoes because your toes might get stepped on, and it's okay. It's okay. You will become better dancers.
Oh, thank you for that. No, I appreciate that. We've spent a lot of time, and I think it's important, and I told Marisol this morning, I'd much rather have this kind of conversation because it gets to the points that we need to cover, and I appreciate, I don't know that I've ever been in a training where right off the bat we've had this much participation, so thank you for that. It was that whole prison thing, right? It got you.
You know, we better talk.
Yeah. Orange doesn't look good on everybody. All right, so thank you for sharing why you're here and all of the sentiments that have been shared. We'll get to the learning climate in just a minute. Some of the things that we've just talked about are important for that. But let me just run real quickly through the rest of what we're going to get to today. So Marisol will talk about understanding family engagement. We'll do a little research activity on, there's 5 different little research papers that we're going to look at and try to learn from. And core beliefs, that's going to be such a fun activity and part of what you've already done on your belief survey. And then we'll kind of talk through how those core beliefs play out, right? When the rubber meets the road, what does that look like? And some of the things that you guys have talked about, we'll reiterate. And then we'll look at, what does it take? How do we identify what does a true family school or homeschool partnership look like? And then this is the lovely pipe cleaner activity. We're going to look at what is your vision at your school after everything that we talk about today. What is your vision? Where are you and where do you want your school to be? And we'll play that out in an activity. And then this homework is going to be a little bit modified. And part of what Chris did was take some pictures that we asked him to do to kind of just jog your memory a little bit. So that activity really, you'll have to go and do that separate from this because normally we have a little time in between, like I said, and you come back and present. So it'll be a little modified, and then we'll close out and get you out of here. Sound good? All right. Real quickly, let's see, did we get the team leader guides on the table?
Yes.
Okay, so each school has one team leader guide, and it kind of helps you kind of pull all this together. So wherever that lands, whatever hot hand that lands in. And it doesn't have to be the principal.
Thank
This is
you.
the principal.
Thank you.
Checks in the mail. All right, so that's there for you. I won't take the time to run through that, but it's got a lot of suggestions about how you can pull this all together, how your team can. And then what I do want to emphasize, this is one of the most important things that you can do over the next 3 days. Bring that book back. Chris put it all together for you. There's participant guide, your binders. Inside that binder you have your participant guide, which I will reference, and we will reference some activities in there. But it's got all 3 days in there, so you need to bring that. If you are likely to forget it, leave it on the table, okay? Because we don't have a whole lot of extra copies of those, so you'll want to make sure that you have that. So in the participant guide, God, it's in my hand. The agenda is there, so if you need to reference and correct me on the 80-20 approach of why I'm not staying on task. The second one is hopes, worries, and challenges worksheet. You may want to kind of go ahead and open that. It's page 4. We're going to do that activity in just a second. There's a copy of the belief survey if you want to do that with your teams at your school or with your faculty. And then a copy of the framework, and then a couple other things. That scavenger hunt is your homework, but we're going to have to modify that. So that's for you to get to have as a resource. All right. This is important because we've already talked about a few things about transparency and honesty and defensiveness and steel-toed shoes. I love that. These are some things, you said something about assume earlier. We shouldn't assume. If I'm saying we're going to build trust, right, we're going to learn how to do that, we have to we can't assume what's important to people, right? We have to make sure that we're intentional and targeted. We're in a space like this. when we're trying to build trust. And some of the things that have come up in our training in terms of what's important to people are that you bring your whole self to this work, right? I know that there will be fires in the building today and tomorrow and the next day. Try to minimize that as much as you can and be respectful with your devices. We're gonna have to check email, we're gonna have to do things, somebody's gonna text you about a problem, I get it. Let's just try to be as respectful as possible. Limit your sidebar conversations, we got lots of time to collaborate, but while we're going through the concepts, let's limit that. Be respectful, which I'm already observing that today because some of you have shared some very honest things, and I don't see anybody getting bowed up and hurt feelings. So, and then be engaged, which that is not a problem with this group. I see it already. In fact, it's gonna be hard to get us out of here at 3, I think. What else is important to you that we need to add to this list? Or does that cover it? Anything else anybody want to add?
Does one of those things mean the same thing as be open? Like be open with what you have to say. Don't be afraid to say what you have to say. You know, we're not gonna be like, I guess, you know.
Be
You know,
open.
With that same thought, anytime, as my wife already said, we're pastors, and when you involve change with a group of people,
Yeah.
man, if you're not open, then change is gonna be difficult.
Yeah.
There's
open to
going to
change.
be friction, it's going to be hard, and so that
open-minded.
openness is crucial.
That's
Open
yeah,
mind,
open mind.
open-minded.
And we can't be fearful of the change, we can't be afraid of the change.
Yep.
I think that's one thing you see a lot in schools is we are so hyper-focused on what we're doing, sometimes we're like, oh, I don't wanna change. I don't
You
want
got
to.
that plan, you got that learning plan.
That's the
lesson
way we
plan.
always did
And
it.
you don't wanna alter it.
Karate.
Challenge that our system,
Hang on, guys.
a challenge our system has always faced, I think, every year, one of the polls is, you know, does it feel like it's together? You know, your system, school to school. And we always say we need to do more of that. We need to make bridging more of those gaps. And I think this may be the linking tool. You know, if we can do it through that parental and involvement, the family engagement, this may be what we need to link our systems, our school. And see, I'm saying systems because it feels that way from school to school. It feels like little mini islands out there, and we do need more togetherness
Great.
for our kids.
Yeah, thank you. And I hope that is because, man, when there's like, even like in larger districts where maybe there's 20 schools, I'm like, the first one, just bring a feeder pattern. Just bring a feeder pattern because this is where conversations start. So thank you for making that link and making that an important statement. These are great. Anything else? If something pops up along the way, just say, hey, Tavia, I want to add something to the norms. Okay. Appreciate that. Oh, yeah. Have fun. Y'all having fun yet? Okay. All right. So on page 4 in your participant guide is that hopes, challenges, and worries. This is what it looks like. Hopes, challenges, worries, and challenges. Take a few minutes for yourself and identify what's important to you in this training. Answer those questions. last question really is about, takeaway. What do you want to get out of this? And either for yourself or for your school. And just list one or two ideas that resonate with you. I'll give you another minute or so, and then I want you to find somebody that you don't work with in your building, and you guys share with each other your thoughts. All right, y'all ready to speed date? One more minute.
I've been working from home, I've been doing it for 2 years almost now. Like, take like a chair.
My yoga pants is taking on the shape of my chair.
Yeah, I do, I don't know, I don't remember the name, but I talk to people all the time. I'm on the board with the foundation, or something there.
In schools and stuff that way.
Yeah. Plus, I'm pretty active now, show up, I'm about to
Okay. I work in the library. I'm a library media specialist.
All right, pick somebody that you don't know. Everybody get up. And then, well, somebody you don't work with or parents that are not part of your team.
But I'll get up.
Brittany, you're Emily, where are you going? Can you make big time? Okay, so I'm middle school. I work at the middle school, but I have a son at the middle school and I have a son at Radford. Yes, so I get that sort of
Everybody's going.
would remind, does he use remind? See, my thing had him last year, and it's the best. Like, he is wonderful because you never, like, there's no reason for you not to know, because I know. And you know, because I know it. I know it, you know. I'm going to take that back. He needs to hear some of that. Because when you're there and you are challenging, a lot of times you get a lot of rebuttal for that. So he's had a lot of rebuttal. So he'll appreciate some praise too. I'll make sure to tell him. He Okay, so it's the same. Well, now, you know, she's a long-term sub. That is really, I mean, she is the teacher, she's filling in, but she's a long-term sub. She's not. And so that has been a challenge. Staffing is a challenge. I know, See, my son did dance, so I get lots of feedback there, and that's one of the things that it's a challenge for us because we've got kids who are involved, they're heavily involved, their parents are heavily involved, but it's with their extracurricular stuff, and I mean, like, that's where we're not week, you know, and I'm like, and we know what's going on there, but it's like, I get nothing from the other teachers. I mean, if I didn't work in the building, I would have no kids. Like, he drops off the face of the earth when he goes to school. And I felt the same way when he was students. It's the same way, like, we dropped off the face of the earth. When we went to Radley, the teachers used remind was the key. It really is, because it doesn't, I don't have to have you do a personal email to me and say, I think it's unless there's a problem. But I do appreciate, like, hey, everybody tests Friday. You know, projects due Thursday. Like, that's the kind of stuff that I love to get, and I'm missing that. We need a program, and I wish our whole system would just go, this is what we're going to use. Everybody's using Remind, we're using this. Because they're supposed to be using Class Dojo in middle school. Yes. It's yucky. It's not a screen. To the point, it is. I'm thankful for saying that. Yes. I had Class Dojo with Luke when he was at Stevens. Now Hank is at the middle school, they won't use Class Dojo, and it's not wanting to say that I can't. It's just yuck. And so I get nothing from Class Dojo from Hank. Like, I have no idea. Like, if anybody send me messages from Class Dojo, I have no idea. Yeah. Have you been getting the emails? Like, we've been sending out mass emails to parents. So you are getting those. Okay. Of course, I like in Spanish. We get them in Spanish too. We got them in Spanish twice. My mother we get in Spanish. You know. Yeah, the first thing was
Just want you to know that you're on camera the whole time. Don't hold a second.
Oh, that's right. Right.
But yeah, we are getting great. And I think something that is great with Sarah and tonight that they decorate.
And see, but I wondered if some of that wasn't.
Okay, guys, go back to your table. Wrap it up.
Some of that is extracurricular stuff. Well, see, at the time, we're not had our parent group set up. We just send out the so I hope those will start helping, but I do. Yes, no, you're good. No, we're kind of talking about it. I feel like our biggest challenge will be communication, bridging the gap of communication, and then that forward planning. Because I feel like sometimes everyone's just kind of in an emergency state, and it's hard to.
I have some OCD chart paper on the wall. One says hopes, worries, and challenges. One says ideas and takeaways. At your table, let's take just a couple of minutes and try to come to a consensus, right, about what we want to, as a larger whole, how we want to focus our work. You have stickies on your table, so talk about each of the questions. We don't have 15 minutes to do this. We need to do this in about 7 or 8 minutes, okay? And then from your table, once you've got the consensus, you can go put your stuff up on whatever board it needs to go on, okay? Discuss. Yeah, this is hopes, worries, and challenges. And this is key takeaways.
That's not worry. Consistency. Yeah, because I put consistency down. Oh, that's the word, consistency between schools.
Mine was just,
Yeah, that's what I said.
because it's more, maybe anyway, that sometimes you have staff members that don't quite get to play around with us. And like you said, without that we can build sometimes, it has to be a collection of, everybody else. But our work, I think, is receptive and understanding, so I just said team.
Well, I said understanding of each other's position as a parent, between an administrator and parent, because I really like to just go in and orient all those teachers about what this the first aid and how to help him when he does that, because, I know we have like 45 minutes. So, usually, like this person, he gets the personalities of each student in order to know how to handle each situation. So that's why I was saying, in the evening, everybody just talk about, learn the behavior, the personality, the culture situation of each student, because you may have it for a student. That's all the state laws, not let them impact their behavior in school. And so, just bridging the gap between, understanding the positions of each. Because understanding you as a administrator, an administrator was against you, except because of his position, just understanding each other's position. And same thing, yeah.
Where they fall. I learned it, bless his heart, he's got a special piece of it. But you have to know, right? Like I said, like the difference, guys with Taylor and difference with Stephen, Friday, and what you were talking about. I have a kid who's Star Wars better than talking to you guys. And was willing to say that was the way it paid off. Just to because you got to followed it up. So like
I mean, that culture piece is important because all this research I did, I don't even know when I was so numb because of the fact he was in that much trouble, So I was like, and she used right, and so she used the term, and the black parent would have been.
And that's why if we go back to this thing, can we not go back to our island?
So his sentence would be like, yes, he did, and she didn't talk like, I was holding my breath, because I was like, oh my God. No, the words, basically, some of the stuff she said I didn't even hear her, because his sentence would be like, and this was his first defense, I'm like, oh my God. See, I'm seriously anxiety. Right. Yeah, see, I didn't know that.
In your handbook.
See, I didn't read that handbook.
It still sounds very scary.
I've already
Very smooth.
Oh my God. Gave me, I was speechless. For some reason, they just, I was having anxiety, like, I'm not driving a line all the time. And without that responsibility to get where it needs to go, you know, all those things, because at home, you know, it's a full crack baby. Because I'm older, we got older sisters, so we just fix it. You know, so I'm like, oh God, it's supposed to be some kind of grown adult at school, and you know, I always would say, I'm gonna call you.
All right, guys, one more minute.
Nothing.
Stickies up on the wall.
Until something happens.
Until something happens, boom, sentence.
And I think 2 days. There needs to be something in between to teach them that independence, because they're being expected to have, and it's like they have problems so much.
And then
We
boom.
had as parents been called, we had
Y'all don't give us room to transition.
It's silence.
Into silence. For the first 3 weeks, we didn't have eye down. Or did nothing. I was shut out. School, right.
Get them on the wall, guys. Get them on the wall.
I'm gonna be like fly on the wall. What you doing there? Okay, teacher and school. And you have I do know that. I'm on stuff. I'm logged into arts, psychology, and all this stuff. So, but I really, she said, oh,
Dr. Price, I just like to point out you're the only one who's
just do that, do this, do that. I know.
If it wasn't for that, I wouldn't know. Like, and I don't think
If they know what's going on.
You would take us back to the people who
right. Get them up there.
Legendary. Ask these people. Tell me. And I got my, you know, that Nancy's problem. This is my neighbor around. So you just, okay, you take that back. Call, I will call your mom. Yes.
Look at, we got two.
You know him? Oh my goodness.
What grade is he? Baylor today.
And you know, he's a sweet little dude.
Baylor does too. He's the assistant principal.
Well, I know all of them.
And you know what, you want me to stick real self-conscious about this? Very
Everybody got their stuff up? It's interesting to me that the hopes, worries, and challenges are a little OCD and the ideas and takeaways are not, right? Okay, thank you for taking the time to do that, and I'm gonna walk around and take a look at that. We're gonna have a break here shortly, and what I would encourage you to do during the break is just do a little gallery walk here and see what everybody had to say. But thank you so much for sharing a window into your soul. One other thing that I failed to mention is we do have a parking lot up here. So if you have a question, something that you want to make sure that we get to, whatever, we're talking too much, put it up on the board. Just take one of your stickies and put it up there on the board. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Marisol for this next little section.
Okay, so it's time for you guys to enjoy my beautiful life. So why are we here? When we asked before why we're here, some of you were very clear about the reason why we're here, but some of you were probably, I don't really know what are we going to get from here, right, from this training. Because sometimes you know, in paper, it sounds really beautiful, but then going back to your schools and implement something that sounds so beautiful and idealistic is really hard. So having that why, it is very, very important. I feel that when I share with you what we did in my school back in 2007, some of you were like, wow, right? And do we really feel that we can do that by like having this training? Do we really feel that we can move our students who are having so many challenges, the poverty, like dysfunctional families, like so many things, COVID, really move them from where they are right now to having like a lot of students at grade level? That's the why. That's what we're going to look for here, and we're going to kind of, we need that why, because that why is going to be in our hearts, and it is what is going to move us to do all of the changes that we need to do in family engagement. So, how many of you know Dr. Kirma? Personally?
Not personally.
No?
I feel like I know a person because
I
I watch so
know,
many of her
right?
videos.
Yeah. Anyone else?
I watch her videos.
So, anything about her? What do you know about her?
She's so positive, like when you, I feel like when somebody introduced me to her videos and they just started sending me these links, and I just feel like when I finish listening to her, I'm like, okay, I got this. You know, she's like, whoa, I can do this. You know, she's like inspiring, like I can do anything. I can help turn Radney around so that it is a pillar in this city.
She is. Yeah.
Her
Dr.
insight,
Mapp.
her insight into what the school should be and what the parent needs. It, you know, and she marries those two perfect. And the way she explains it is really, and like, I'm like, Dr. Moore, she really does make you feel like it's achievable. And it is, you know.
Dr. Mapp is amazing. I feel that she's one of the gurus of family engagement. There are like 3 big people for me that know a lot of family engagement. I would say that she is probably the first one. She is a graduate from Harvard, she also teaches at Harvard, I think at the master level, and she has done a lot of research in family engagement. She has a lot of publications related to family engagement. And also, she was the one who wrote the book Beyond the Bake Sale. Do you know that book? For me, that book was kind of family engagement before Beyond the Bake Sale and after Beyond the Bake Sale. So in my case, when I read that book, I was already working in family engagement, and it was like an eye-opener for me. Wow, some of the things that we're doing, that we're thinking, that we're really engaging families were not. This is not family engagement. So her work has been amazing, and we're going to see the dual capacity framework, which she did in collaboration with the Department of Education, and we're going to study that, and it is amazing, her work. You're going to see it. But it will be nice if she were here, but she's super busy, so we have this video, and she's going to welcome you. And let's see if what she says changed your expectations.
Good day, I'm Dr. Karen Mapp, and I'd like to personally welcome your school teams to our FACE Professional Development Training. The series of workshops that I've created in collaboration with Scholastic are designed to build your school's capacity to engage in partnerships with your families in ways that will support student achievement and school improvement. We know that an important and essential component of any school's success is strong partnership between school staff and families. So the 3 workshops that you will participate in are designed to focus on improving and strengthening your family engagement initiatives and to help you create and sustain even stronger bonds of trust and respect between your school and all of your families. I've designed the workshops to be interactive and fun. I know how busy you all are, so I appreciate the time you have committed to this work. I am confident that after completing this training and applying the strategies and techniques that you will learn, that your schools will become the go-to sites to see excellent practice in the area of family engagement. Enjoy.
Okay, so what do you think about your expectations now after you saw that video? Expectation for the training. What caught your attention from what she said?
She's gonna tell us how to do it.
We're going to come up with strategies. Did you hear that word? Strategies? What else?
Sustainability.
Sustainability. And I heard like the word stronger partnerships, like 2 times maybe? Stronger?
I mean, of course, we've heard the word trust already, and she used that word as well, the trust between the 2 parties. And, you know, on that same note, it's hard to trust when you know history. So, and because of past history, because of reputation, it's harder to trust in those moments. So, in the same word that we use trust, we also have to use the word guard. And so we must guard our trust, but that doesn't mean that we don't give it. And so I feel like that's an important capacity in any of the training or conversation that we have.
And you know what? I was thinking about, now that you're saying that, and going back to what you said before, trust. Like, if I go to a restaurant and they don't treat me well, I will probably never come back.
Right.
But if somebody asks me about that restaurant, I'm gonna say, don't go. And that was probably one person who was having a bad day that day, you know, and they didn't treat me well. But that was enough for me to have that mindset about that restaurant. And that happens sometimes in some places. Like, it could be, like, I remember back in my school district, there was one of the schools that one of the ladies who worked at the front desk, she was amazing. Like, she did everything for the principal, but she was not nice. So, that happens. That happens. So you need to make sure that, and we did a lot of customer service, like training and other things to make sure that those people at the front desk who are like the face for the school were treating well, like parents. But if that happens once, that's it. That's it. So, yeah, so building that trust, you can spend years building that trust, but you probably need only one incident. That's it.
To tear it down, yeah.
Yeah. So, anybody else? Anything about the video?
I heard excellence there at the end, like excellent practice.
Excellence.
And to your point about, that one instant, I mean, we are building trust, but we're also building practices that promote excellence.
Exactly.
And that's part of sustainability, I think.
So when we come back from our break, we're going to start revising the dual capacity framework, but we're gonna take how much time? 10
Let's take
minutes?
about just a 6-7 minute stretch break and go to the bathroom, which I think you all know is here. And then make sure you take a look at the hopes, worries, challenges, and takeaways, okay? So real quickly, stretch break, get more coffee, or not, in some cases.
I mean, it was a little bit sensible. I just need to say how it worked
And you turn into a monster like my God.
and then versus you didn't anticipate it was never intended to come from additional. Get our advantage.
Yeah, I get that very much because I'm like, for one thing, but now, for one thing, part of my job at Tuskegee, we look at social justice issues and things like that, and so prison pipeline, junk and stuff, and so I'm already hypersensitive to it because it's part of my, so I know that's not what it really just gave me, like, not in my business, but I just could not even speak, because I know Tom somebody. And she's like, why is this talking a lot?
That's not wrong.
Yes. And don't forget that beauty factor y'all got and I just, after my job was messed because he's my own lord, he knows every day in his life now. So I tell him, look, he's over doing this. He think he's thinking about girls. This kind of stuff. So, that's the whole thing. And then, got that, these girls are very,
You don't have to, you don't have to say
I'm like, "Bro, at least I can get back to sweat." You have to make it
energy, and he's still a little bit slightly immature. He may not be doing you because he's like delayed a little bit. And so I just feel like, you know, like, each one of those kids like little projects where I know this one's gonna move if I say this, and that one right there, he must be got something going on today. Right. And they walked in a line on their own.
and they're, well, and that was my first experience.
To understand which one of those kids. Yeah, but see, that's why in the very beginning of this issue, like, he talks too much. Call me right away so I can get started. Don't take that load on your own because you got 120 others. Let me help you. Me too. Me too. I will come over there.
And all of them
And so, yeah, so like Austin, this trouble, he got in trouble with disrupting. And so the substitute told him in the middle of class, so and I just right away, because like that, it makes him almost outraged because he doesn't like the teacher, he doesn't like him, you know. So he was in his reaction to that got him in trouble. So I do that, but I had to let him accept that punishment. You got to, and so, but still was like, yeah. And so, and us parents, like, that he's really acting like that, on his mouth over there in that classroom. I had this again and again and again. Yeah, you better, because I still got that phone and that video.
and then with people in charge, you don't want
That's what I told the lady on the phone. What's her name? Rising or Rising? Oh, God. Rising, girl. He's already noticed, he noticed, he remembered. So you can tell me that more.
She's like, let's get back.
You're all for sure. Now, y'all don't know Mr. Titsy because y'all, the first time you have itsy bitsy problem.
Yeah, we ready? Okay, one more minute.
Yeah, but you know, he's precious. You can't have no money.
Yes.
To me, you hear it the first time. To me, that's a problem. He can get away. So he's going to be.
We have some frequent flyers. Young man felt like Because he was trying to be sneaky.
Yeah, he laughs a lot.
So, you see what I'm saying? We're working where
Be still.
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna get started now. Please take your seats.
Because then all of a sudden,
Hey, get planned in advance.
All right. Okay, so in order to develop stronger family engagement, we need to have a common understanding of what family engagement is. So we're going to start by learning about or kind of understanding our dual capacity building framework for family engagement. And I think you have a copy in your participants guide. Can you find your copy, please?
It's not the beautiful color copy, but.
I apologize for that. So this is the second version of the framework. The first version was presented to the public in 2013, and it was in one of the family engagement conferences in Cincinnati, and I had the privilege to be there. And I was so happy. It was the U.S. Department of Education at that time, and Dr. Karen Mapp, the ones who presented this dual capacity framework. It was kind of different, the first version to this one. The first version was vertical. So it came from the challenges down to the outcomes. This one is kind of horizontally, and the layout is different. And also, Dr. Matt said that what they did for this one was they got some input from the parents and added a few things. But it is pretty much the same, has the challenges, the process conditions, organization conditions, and policy and program guides, and goals, and then the outcomes. So we're gonna talk about the outcomes first, and I have a question for you. When you have your students coming into your classroom, what is your goal for them? Students are coming into your classroom, what is your goal for those students?
Student achievement.
Did they were there that day? What else? What?
Some kind of learning's going on, you're showing kindness, you're showing care.
And that sometimes doesn't happen, right? You plan the best lesson and then you give them the assessment and nothing. Okay, so let's see, we're gonna start at the end. And this is the outcome for the dual capacity framework. Who can read this for me?
Effective partnerships that support students and school improvement.
Okay, so what we want is to have that partnership with the families that is gonna end up in a school improvement and student achievement, right? And that is, that was what happened in my school when I told you that school that I used to work. So this is, the framework is gonna help us, it's gonna serve as a model for the family engagement. So thing that is very important for us is to have a definition of what family engagement is. And sometimes we feel that it is to be welcome at the schools. Sometimes we feel, what do you think it is, like, some of the things that we think is family engagement? Who can tell me? Don't, don't read that, just tell me, what do you think? Communication?
I mean, even to tag that two-way communication.
Two-way communication.
Participation
Participation, in what way?
in various ways, just where they can participate in their child's learning, participate in events that are happening at the school, to be a part of it.
Okay. And sometimes we have a lot of, like, I remember in my district, when we have carnivals, like, everybody was there. But is that really family engagement? They were there. Yeah. But it's not really family engagement, because that is not really going to help us, to help you in the achievement.
When I was growing up, I was in a really, really small community, but this is something that I suggested to Jim Pearson, pre-COVID. They did a fall festival every year in the gym, and that was successful. But what we did when I was growing up was, it was throughout our entire school. So every teacher participated and had something in their classroom. And it was some type of game and activity, but the parents were also able to come into that classroom where their kid was learning and see what their kid was learning based on what was on the walls. It wasn't just like a conference, parent-teacher conference type setting, but it was a fun setting where they also got to see, this is where my kid learns, this is what they're learning. And they got to see the environment of the school. And I think if we just transitioned maybe the way that we did some of those activities to bring families in, where it actually showed them more of what they are doing on a day-to-day basis, it could serve as both.
Yeah, and that's right. And also, we have to think that bringing those parents to those events, like the carnivals, can probably help with the trusting relationships, right? To develop that relationship. But we want more than that. We want the parents to learn what the kids are learning. Or if the students are not learning, so they can help them at home, right?
We have to be available, you know. I'm just saying, I hear teachers say, when I get off work, I'm off work, I'm not talking to parents. Well, some parents aren't able to communicate with you during the day, so you have to have, and make the parents trust you and feel like they can talk to you, you know. I think that's where some of it, you know, they don't want to talk to them after school, or, you know, I've had parents call me at 7 o'clock at night, because that's the only time they can talk to me, you know. So I think we have to put ourselves out there.
Exactly, and sometimes what you need is to be sensitive and understanding not only their cultural differences, but what is going on at home. So, like, sometimes it takes only, like, to move some of our meetings. Like, I remember once, what we did with the parents' meetings, we moved them right after they dropped their children at home, at the school. So we moved the specials to that hour, so the teacher had like 45 minutes to meet with the parents. So you don't need to work after 4. You just need to be open to changes. Open to, okay, the parents are not here not because they don't like, they don't want to, or not because they don't care about their kids. They can be here because they have different things to do. They need to bring food to their houses. So probably by doing that, like right after school or like after they drop their kids in the morning, by doing that, it will increase that parents' participation.
Also, you can take advantage of days where you have the most parent participation. Like, I've seen a lot of Facebook posts about donuts for dads, donuts for mom. I don't know why did people show up. I know that's good because you don't want to embarrass your child by not showing up. But there's a lot of parents that comes to that. So you take advantage of your days where they show up the most, and then say, well, this is what's going on. This is what we have. Like we used to have instructional night where they'll say every Thursday we have this and blah blah blah. So I guess COVID took that away. I don't know what happened, but we don't we don't have a clear sense of what's going on, then you'll have more work on you. And it becomes more your responsibility for what's going on in your classroom, because we are not informed, and so that makes you the only adult that knows. So, days like donuts for dad, whatever you have for mom, whatever, flowers for mom, I don't know. But, so days where you know you're gonna have parents show up the most, then you take advantage of that time. Because instructional night, it may have been me and 2 or 3 others, people that look like me, in there. And then you assume that the parents don't care, but they don't, that's not something that they'll come to.
Right.
And,
And we had a lot of success with that. We used to have the parents come, and so it was donuts for dads, and the dads came in to that first period class, and they did the lessons. I remember, Dr. Price, were you the principal at that time?
Mm-hmm.
But I remember we were doing sentences, and I had skeleton sentences and monster sentences, because we were just making the sentences bigger. And the dads were right there participating with the kids, and it was wonderful. And I had lots of dads that came up afterwards that, Miss Foreman, I didn't know you covered all of this stuff.
Right.
And so it was wonderful, but since COVID, we've not been able to,
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I have a few things to say. We have to be strategic. And I have a lot of stories, and forgive me if I go with my stories. I remember I was working in a reservation. The school was about, most of the kids were about an hour away from the school, so they needed to be in the bus for 1 hour. So it was very difficult for the parents to come to the school for meetings. But 2 or 3 times a year, they have that drive event where they give to the families, the Native American families, school supplies and a lot of things, and they were busing to the school. So what the principal did was she used that time, that day for those events, to then talk to the parents about learning, talk to the parents about data, and involve and engage the parents in that partnership to help the students improve. That was one. And the other thing that I wanted to say is that, why do you think they come for donuts for dads or muffins for moms, and not for events when they're going to learn about learning or how their kids are doing?
I'm pretty sure it's because they don't want their son or daughter to be standing there looking crazy like they don't have parents, and they care about how the kids' emotions are.
Exactly.
And the kids are excited about the parents. If the kids are excited about coming, they're gonna convince their parents to come. If the kid's not excited about the parent coming,
that's true.
And the student has a lot of power in that.
Yeah.
Because it goes back to when we were doing donuts for dad and muffins for mom. That's in the morning, all my friends, and I'm speaking like a Radney, when I say that, all my friends are gonna see. So I'm going to encourage, and I go back to my daughters, Mama, you're gonna be there, you're gonna be there.
Right.
But if it's after school and they're gonna be teaching you how to, I may not even show you the little invitation.
Right.
I'm definitely not gonna say, Mama, are you going? Mama, are you going? And so Mama might know about it, but the kid is not excited about it.
Right.
So that's one barrier, is how you get it out to them. And I go back to what Mr. Tuttle said about the history.
Yeah.
If I've gone and it's just been us sitting there and it's not really interactive, it's not relational, it's not participatory, a lot of the parents are gonna pass on it. But I can remember back when, a couple of years ago, when Jim Pearson did a spooky story night or something, and it was wonderful because they read story and they did activities and the parents were there to help and all of that. It checked all those boxes to be engagement and not just involvement.
Yeah.
But a lot of it's the timing and how excited do we, as a school, do we motivate the kids? Because the first 200 that log in get a donut, and that's all it took. For 200 parents to log in.
I logged in, got my cupcake point over here. And I'm not even a parent there.
It's also an opportunity for teachers to see, if a parent, say for instance, donuts for dads, if it's also an opportunity to see what student, if the dad doesn't show up, that gives you an opportunity to see a student that may have an issue at home, you know, like somebody, you see what I'm saying? So it's twofold to me, you know.
That was exactly what I was gonna piggyback, a Teddy Roosevelt quote that we use in ministry. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Yeah.
So are we caring for the student so much that we care about the parent, that we care about the situation at home so that they can come to school and learn?
I was gonna say as well, you know, for some of our students, they know they struggle. So I don't want my mom and daddy to come and no telling what the teacher's gonna tell them about my struggle. So they just don't know, you know, they get their report card, they may be upset and don't know how to help learn, you know, teach me when I needed to be taught. And they'll, you know, after that we can see my bad grade, then I can go back on to, you know, but if they have to sit there and learn the things, like I'm learning it, that's the situation for them. And also Muffins and Mom and Dad, you know, I've always, even as a classroom teacher, I always struggled with those days because I grew up without a father. So for those days, for Dad, I wouldn't have had any. I didn't have a grandfather either because he passed away. So those days were always hard for so many kids because, you know, so if I had students, I would say, go with so-and-so's parent, and they would all go and do. But some kids didn't, so they were left behind. So those days, I didn't like those days because that was hard because I know me as a child, I didn't have a daddy or granddaddy, so I wouldn't have had anybody that could have been there.
But if we engage our parents, you know, my husband helped coach with the middle school football team this year, and the more that I came, the first like 6 games I think were away. And I started noticing as I was subbing that some of the boys were saying, Miss Tuttle, are you coming to watch me tonight? And I would say, yeah, I'll be there. And they were like, but it's an hour away. And I was like, I'll be there. And then one day it was like the Lord just dropped in my spirit as I was watching some of these boys go to the concession stand back and forth. There were a handful that had parents there with food. But then you had a lot of boys who had nobody and no food. And they're being fed before they leave the school, yes, but they're still hungry after they've just played a game. And then they have an hour ride home, and then it's 10 o'clock, you know, when they get home. And so the Lord led me to ask about 10 of those boys, what's your favorite drink and what's your favorite snack? And I began taking that stuff to them every week because those kids needed to see that somebody cared. And I had several of those boys tell me, my mom never comes to my games. And one of the boys that became really special to us, he even got injured at one of the games, and when the trainer was trying to find a parent, there was no parent there for him. And this is a kid that struggles academically. This is a kid that struggles in a lot of ways that people probably don't see. But if we're able to include our parents, you have men, you have women in your community that want to help, that want to be the mother and the father to the mother and fatherless, and want to plug in those ways if they know, and they know they're welcome. So I understand that, but we as a community have to do better at stepping in when there's a void.
And I wanted to say, you want to say something?
Go ahead, go, I don't want to.
I wanted to say that about the donuts and muffins. Do you think they feel safe when they go to those meetings? Okay. Yeah. What happened with a child that struggles? Let's say that struggles in kindergarten, 1st grade, 2nd grade, 3rd grade. When he gets to 4th grade, is that parent going to receive a different message?
Oh, yeah.
No, they're gonna say the same. Like, if I go and meet with the teacher is gonna tell me that he struggles, and I know that.
So why come they hear the same thing that you do?
Exactly.
I'd like to say just a couple of things. When you look at that family engagement, you're probably going to get to this in a second, but I think we have to be mindful about what family is, right? Because it's not, as you said, it's not always a mom or a dad. It could be a grandparent or an aunt or a neighbor who's highly involved. And I'm not saying you should not do donuts for dads and muffins for moms, but we want to think about that inclusive language that we use to make sure that, you know, if I am, you know, Scott's aunt, that I feel welcome enough to come to that day where the important female person in their life is there, right? The other thing that I want to say, and it is like a whole nother Oprah, but it's around poverty and what we think about our families and our children in poverty. And we had a little sidebar discussion, and you probably got this from that book from Eric Jensen. We subconsciously feel sorry for our families and kids in poverty. And I suspect that when the pandemic started, you guys got to see firsthand some of the situations that your children are living in. Just if you're going to deliver homework or whatever, you may have gotten to see. Some of the schools that I work with were like, oh my God, I can't believe what I just witnessed in the life that this child is living. Do not let yourself or your staff lower their expectations, because you are destroying that child's ability to develop confidence. Keep the bar high, no matter what that situation at home is like, okay? So I'm super passionate about that and don't want to offend anybody by that, but the lens through which you mentioned maybe having a bad experience at school, families don't like to come. If they feel like you are looking at them down your nose,
All right now.
we're about to go to church. Okay? So we have to check ourselves. Okay? We've got, and you've got to build that culture within your staff. You've got to check yourself, because if we want families and caregivers to truly be partners, they can't feel that. Okay? I know some of the situations that we observe makes us feel like families don't care or families are not involved, but we don't know why they don't come to the game, right? Maybe they work night shift. But we can't make those assumptions, back to the point you said assumptions earlier. So, to be continued, but...
And also, one of the reasons why we call this family and community engagement is because we also need to build that community. When I was doing my master's, I was working full-time masters, like 12 grades per semester, and I had 2 kids. So I had a friend who was a stay-home mom, who was the one who used to tell me, hey, tomorrow we have such and such. So she was the one who was helping me, like, keep up with my kids. And my husband was working in China at that time, so it was really, really hard for us to kind of keep up with all of the tons of meetings that we were invited at school. Because that's the other thing. We have donuts, we have muffins, we have carnivals, we have games, we have
math, we have ice cream socials.
Ice cream socials, and then how do you...
Watermelon welcome.
Yeah. Which are the events that you're going to pick to go? And which are the ones that are very important? How do you communicate with your families to let them know, okay, these are the ones that are going to help your child learn? That is very important too, and that's the reason why we call this a strategy. Because we need to think about all of those things when we put in place that family engagement strategy. So I want somebody to read the family engagement definition for Dr. Mapp. Volunteer with this Trump.
I can't see it.
Family engagement is any way that a child's adult caretaker, biological parents, foster parents, siblings, grandparents, etc., effectively supports learning and healthy development at home, at school, and in the community.
Okay. Now, the other definition is from the Connecticut state. Can anyone, let's think about it. Read it for yourself, the Dr. Mapp's definition first, and then we'll read the second one. Ready?
You're messing.
Okay, so sorry. Now, can somebody read the second one? There we go.
Family,
Go ahead.
family
engagement is a full, equal, and equitable partnership among families, educators, and community partners to promote children's learning and development from birth through college and career.
Okay, so what do you think about Dr. Mapp, definition? Anyway, what do you see there that you haven't think about?
In any way is the first one, supporting in any way. The bottom one, it has to be fair and equal, but sometimes it's not fair.
Whatever it takes.
Whatever it takes.
A lot of our kids are not being raised by their parents, so we have to include, you know, not just saying, like she was saying, mom or dad, it can be, you know, parents and guardians, 'cause
Exactly, and okay.
I think as well, the second one says the child's learning and development. And I think even in the first one, it's the parents' learning and development as well. It's not just, I don't think it's just about the child learning, the adult or caretaker is learning as well.
Learning how to support their children.
Yeah.
And I like, in the first one by Dr. Mapp, because when she talks about family, it can be anyone. It can be your neighbor. It can be somebody from the community, that is helping. My daughter had a baby when she was 17. Of course, 5 years after she has her baby, she was a single mother. And Michelle was going to school, and she had that year a bad teacher. Everyone in the family was supporting Michelle. And that was the year when she had her best score on the standardized test. Everybody was helping. Like, my mom used to pick her up, then because I was a teacher, I was supporting her, and my son was helping her, and everybody was helping her. That was her best year. So that is very important, to let our parents know that it doesn't have to be you. If you have someone in your family who can help, make sure that your son is doing their homework. Make sure that, a sibling, somebody can help. Anyone can help. What else?
I wanted to just jump in real quick. So in order to get there, we have to make an effort to get to know. Like, if you don't know what the child or family story is, you don't know. We don't know what we don't see. And we have to make that effort, and we have to initiate that effort as educators to build that relationship.
Because I think sometimes we see the outward appearance of the child. They come in, they've got on nice clothes, and I think a lot of times those parents spend that money on that because they want that persona that everything's okay, even if it's not really okay.
And we make assumptions as educators.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
That they, they can base, we just make assumptions.
We do, and we don't know until you get to know your parents.
And if you think of that as a team, you got your quarterback, and you gotta have all players on the team, parents, community educators, to meet the goal. Because you got, for those 8 hours a day, you have them, I don't know what you're doing. So in order for the next player, which would be parent or whoever, you gotta be able to relay the play, and then you gotta do it that way, because I feel like we work in silos, and then, if you look at the data, the statistics, you can hit me with it, but it's like 62% free lunch, so which means to me, 62%, you gotta have strategies for that level of family, whether it's, whoever is the family, so you can't just ignore that level, because those are the same students, majority of them, that struggle academically because they are probably doing jobs that 12 hours that Sam lived or somewhere, and 12 hours of 8-hour school day, you miss the opportunity to discuss or engage or whatever you need to do. So you have to look at the community culture where we got factories. Majority of those 62% poverty level are on those factory 12-hour shifts, and so we don't think of it that way. And so You don't know that I'm 10 hours to work, and, commute my job an hour in Tuskegee every day. You don't know that about me, and then so, it's not gonna be 30 minutes where I can just pop in and pick up, you know what I'm saying? So you have to know the dynamics of the family and the situation in order to be equal, and to be a team player.
Exactly. Now, you said something very interesting for me. When you say that we as educators sometimes ignore, which is true, like the family situation, what are we saying? And I think there are 3 words there that are kind of related to that. What are we telling the parents when we ignore, well, there's a dysfunctional family, let's ignore that. What are we saying? We're probably saying that we're not equal partners, that I can do the job, right? I don't need you. And that happens so, like, many times.
It makes me think of this phrase that we have used before. We as educators do to parents and not with parents, right?
Yeah. Let me do it. I'll teach your children. You make sure that they eat it.
Ooh, that's a heavy load, because that makes you only responsible, the only responsible adult who knows what's going on. And then, so then by the time it gets to me, I'm like, well, it's your fault, because you didn't let me in on what happened. So, that's just the way I look at it as a parent, I don't know about.
Well, as a teacher, and I think this is a good thing that I think of it like this, but you may not, but I think of it as, okay, your child is here with me, I will be teacher and mama, as much as I can be, you know, but that's what I see it as is, yes, mama has a job and she works, so let me take care of you while you're here.
But see, when you're doing what you do there, and then I don't know what happened, I don't know what you're doing, what you see, you have that bird's eye view of what's going on right there, but then I'm over here thinking everything's fine, and then boom, you're suspended, and you've been showing out in school and I didn't know it.
Yeah, or as simple as first grade. I know when our oldest hit first grade here, you know, that's when they're learning more how to write and read sight words more than kindergarten. And again, this goes back to the way I was taught. I had a list of spelling words from Monday to Friday every week. We went over those every night to make sure I knew those so that I made a good grade on that on Friday. When I approached the first grade teacher, which I love her so much, but when I approached her about that, and I didn't really know how to help my daughter in those testing things and reading and all of that, I was told, well, we don't teach that way anymore, because if you practice those words at home, then they're just memorizing them, they're not really learning them. And so I think the technique of teaching has changed very much from when even I was in school. And that can even, I've had another parent tell me that she felt very offended by that. I wasn't offended by it, I just thought, well, if she makes a bad grade, I don't know how to help, because I don't know what her spelling words are, you know? And thankfully our oldest has done excellent in school and she needs no help. I'm so thankful, because I don't know how to help her with her math. But, you know, there's lots of things that I feel like, okay, this is the way that you want to teach, but if you have a child that has a need that's not grasping the words, then go back to something that'll work, or find something that will work and engage the parent. Our middle child is totally different than our first child. She's actually having to be pulled every day for reading. She's struggling a lot in reading. And so, you know, for us at home, my question is, and I didn't know, no offense to anybody there, but I didn't even know she was being pulled until she made an F on a test. And it came home for me to sign, and I was like, what in the world? And then I got, when I went in to speak with our teacher about what can I do to help her at home to do better, what are you doing that's effective, I found out that day she wasn't teaching my daughter reading. My daughter was being pulled to go somewhere else. And that was communication that didn't happen. I had no idea that she was struggling that bad. I had no idea that she was being pulled. And here at home, we're trying to read every night. And I mean, I know that she's struggling, but I didn't know she's making bad grades in school. And so I think the communication there of this is what I'm doing that is successful with your kid at school. You know, this is what I see that they're struggling with. This is how we can help. This will be better. some of that communication needs to be a little clearer, because for a lot of parents, education is so different today than it was when we were in school. So that communication is very, very, very important.
You want to say something?
No, I was just gonna say, some of what you're talking about, we're gonna cover when we get to the process conditions. Those process conditions really are, you know, what we can do in the building to help build capacity. And she's reaching in, trying to figure out how she can help. And we'll, I don't wanna dismiss what you're saying, but that's, I wanna pull it back in when we talk about the process conditions. One thing I wanted to say before you move on is, you need to have, it doesn't have to be these definitions, but you need to have a common definition in your building that everybody can buy, right? I had a district in Louisiana that I was working with, and one of the elementary principals locked the door and she says, "We're not leaving until we can agree on what family engagement is." Because what family engagement means to me might be that the kid just comes with what he needs to come with and gets his work done. And it may mean to you that you want that family in the room or you want to see that presence. And we know, we're going to know a little bit more in a minute about the research, but finding common ground and definition, and because you're in one district with an entire feeder pattern, that definition needs to have some commonality across. It doesn't have to be exactly the same, but the spirit of it needs to be consistent.
Yeah,
That's all.
that's
I know
right.
so
And
far,
something that I really like about the second definition is that they include first to college. So it is like they're even taking care of the families from right away when the kids are born. Okay, so we are going to hear about this teacher of the year. And what I would like you, and you can, we're gonna send you later the video so you can watch it at home. Pay attention to what she said and take notes if there's anything that comes to your mind when you're listening.
I never had a teacher come to my house before. One time she popped up to two of my friends' houses and she came with chocolate chip cookies that she made by herself. It's really cool.
Hey, going this way? Okay. So Makayla has been keeping track of some of her work this year. So she wants to kind of go through and share that with you and kind of let you see some of her goals for school. So you want to start off with Module 1?
On Module 1, I got a 45. Module 2, I got a 35. Then Module 3, I got a 78.
The reason we do this is because if I just see, oh, a 78C, I might think, oh, that's really not that great. But looking at where she came from, that is incredible. I was so proud of you. Ever since I first started teaching, I remember seeing families come in for parent-teacher conferences. Seeing the child next to their family member just made things different. They belonged to someone, and they were someone's whole world. I feel responsible as their teacher to have that open-minded communication with their families. I want them to see that. I love you more than I can tell you, and I want to show that in my actions. Hey, Easton. Walking. I used to think family engagement was the same as parent involvement, and I learned recently that that is not the case. Changing involvement to engagement is huge because being involved in something, there's not a real sense of commitment, where when you're engaged in it, you're taking a stake in this, and it matters to you what the outcome is. Fast. Here. Out here in the air are all those molecules like we talked about. In order for families to really make an impact on their students' performance, they really need to not only know what is expected of them, but they need to know where their kids are at in meeting that expectation and how to get them there. And I don't think what I was doing in the past with newsletters and having parents come and volunteer in my class was meeting those goals. Technology really helps a lot with engaging families. I've started doing Facebook Live. That has really been powerful in helping those families who especially can't come during the day to sit into a classroom lesson. Welcome, everybody. We've been doing some pretty tricky stuff in math. Something called distributive property. It is really easy. I took home some chart paper from school and I wrote down a few problems and just set up my iPad and bam, we're live. It's more than me just telling them I have a daughter. It's more than me just telling them we got a new cat. This is me letting them come into my life and my house. And so it kind of just helps make that connection a little bit stronger.
Bye guys, have a great night. Thanks for joining us. See ya.
This year for me, I feel like because I put so much stake into family engagement, I know other things have kind of fell by the wayside. You would have to be absolutely perfect to be able to get every single thing right in education. So I think it's okay to understand that we're all growing. Building relationships isn't easy. I have to fight every single day to build a relationship with my husband. I have to work every day to build a relationship with my kids and my coworkers. And so that's something I think I see with my students. I would love for it to be easy to build relationships with them, but nothing worthwhile ever is. I want them to really, truly believe that they are capable of doing whatever they set their mind to, that it's going to take hard work, it's going to take practice. It makes me excited to know that I am not alone in this and that their families are there and we're all helping develop this child who hopefully will be a better person because of this experience.
I laughed when she said that she needs to work on her relationship with her husband. I've been married for 34 years and it's still like, right? Every day is like, so we're going to discuss in your tables, and I want you to read these questions in your tables and think about answers, and then we're going to share. Can somebody read the first question for me?
I'll read it. It says, how do you think Jessica would define family engagement?
Because she said this is family engagement, it's not family involvement, right? Second question, please.
It says, what is the difference between involvement and engagement?
And from what you saw on that video, right? And third question?
Are you involved or engaged with your family?
And that's the big, right? So we're going to give them how much time?
Let's just take about 4 minutes or so and talk about, 5 minutes.
The one where they had to go over their grades and like do the presentation. Baylor did not come home and tell me about that because I have Baylor's email on my phone. I saw Miss Hurd send a video message home. That's the only reason I knew about it. When I asked Baylor about it that night, it was due that day.
Oh, it's already been done.
Well, so I asked Baylor, I was like, what are you going to do? He was like, he just wanted to sit down, show me his grades, and like just go all willy-nilly. And I was like, yeah, this is professional. They're trying to teach you like a way to present this and how to do it. This is something else they do. You need to go, sit down, write some of this down. Like he didn't even have a paper for the rubric thing. I had to pull it up, take a screenshot, and send it to him. Like, who knows? In his backpack, I had like every time.
Well, it's probably digital. It's probably
I don't know. So he worked on it that night, and I was like, well, we waited till the last minute, so you're gonna have to turn it in late. So I made him wait till the next day where he had some clear, concise thoughts, and then I made him do his day because I didn't want to be with Lloyd sitting there.
Good.
So, and then Lloyd actually like asked him questions back and everything else. And then I had to ask him, did you turn it in? Well, I couldn't find where I needed to turn it in.
Yeah, that's not clear.
I was like, you do it on Flipgrid. You do it on Flipgrid internally.
Well, he had to video it, so he videoed it on his phone, showing us his Chromebook.
Okay.
He pulled up his Chromebook and had it sitting there and was showing Lloyd his grades. And talking about each one. So then he videoed it with his phone, which that was kind of because I was like, I don't know how else we're gonna video it. And then he's like, well, I don't know, turn it in. He's got Phil in first grade. Never mind, Phil in second grade, which he loves.
But you know, I haven't done it yet. But you know, to me, that just proves the issue. I mean, guess who's missing out of there?
Why don't we go ahead?
Teacher. You know, I mean, cause I gotta go home my own self and find out what fluke means, cause I'm sure he knows.
Yeah, I don't know that.
But you know what I'm saying?
Well, the teacher, the homeroom teacher, whatever they.
Oh, okay.
It was just in the let Maxwell.
Oh,
So it's okay. I think they're just like building to use whatever works for them. So it's not like simple, just like whatever.
I just told my
but to me, you know, that's all we have. That's all we have is grades. How did you get this? What happened? What did you, what was you supposed to be studying? You know,
I was
it's just
putting
still,
the grade
you know,
card
peace
that
out.
had columns, and where like if you click on it, it's like it has notes.
Yeah, I had the rubric, but I didn't.
So I tried to find that, and there wasn't anything there. And then Baylor was telling me, I was like, well, you got over one on an assignment. And he was like, no, Mama, they have to say something there. If they haven't put grades in, they have to put a number there. And I was like, boy, that's lawyers. I don't know if that's zero or not.
They don't put a zero, but a one to let the child know. If you turn it in, or they were absent that day, but the one lets you know as a parent.
So I thought he just flat out went one.
Oh, I'm so surprised.
Yields out.
Some teachers.
That was my
The way it changes matters. So it's
It does. Like when I come to
I really beat that.
somehow will put on the parking lot because
It's automatic. So it can be family engagement. So if I was just run family engagement, obviously
Interaction.
interaction with your family, helping your families understand how to support their children. And then that's not involvement with me, like coming to the meeting or, you know, helping your
Between face-to-face and the phone call.
well, your engagement is going to be where they're actually participating.
I feel like they don't bring them to the house and they're really like they like I knew they had to be down for the younger kids, but I mean we still have to meet the teachers, we still like know what's going on. You know, especially after like the older they get, they feel like they know what's going on. Just a thought.
All right, there you go. All right, who would like to share? I heard good things here and there and everywhere. Can you share what you were saying?
Still writing.
Sure.
We talked about
One
involvement
more
was
minute.
supplying the information, whereas with the engagement, we have the parents actually doing and learning along with the student to build their capacity to be able to help their student have a successful school year. And we talked about, the powerful things Jessica had said was her about expectations that the parents need to know, well, what are the students learning, you know, when, as far as expectations and where they are and how we're gonna get them there to meet them. But I think if we can find a way, and that's what we were talking about, finding a way to have the parents want to not just be involved, but take it a step further, dive in and engage with their students and engage with what the students are doing every day. I think if we can do that, we've made a path to hopefully a successful, you know, school year and tying that engagement to student learning and growth.
And sometimes we need to move that or go that extra mile, right? Because we're talking about Common Core and different ways to learn to read, etc. But why not teaching the parents how to help their children, right?
Yeah.
Anybody else?
We talked a lot about, that from the first question about how you think she would define it. The big word that stuck out to us was the word relationship and building that relationship, and she wasn't afraid, and we don't need to be afraid to make those connections and let them make those connections with us. That one really stuck out to us for, you know, just building those relationships to the point that they know that we're not looking down or like, well, you know, I'm the educated one here, I can do the teaching. And I think that she made that real personal connection, you know, with her family, their families, and, you know, the kids seemed really excited about it. So we talked about that, and we talked about the involvement versus engagement. You know, we were talking about the commitment to the engagement part, and we got to know that we, you know, have a commitment to that side of it. The involvement, we can all just be real superficial and have our muffins and donuts, but the engagement is much more, is deeper and much more of a commitment for us.
We came up with two things. One is the idea that she sees herself as a family among other families. There's no paradigm seeing one on top of each other. She's within the group. And the other one is they are relationally committed with one another in ways that yields outcomes, growth, and change. And that's a different view of how we are to exchange our lives with them.
Say that again?
They are.
I like it.
She was relationally committed with one another in ways that yield outcomes, growth, or change.
And you know what? When we talk about that relationship with families, think about your teachers. Because sometimes if you tell a teacher that that teacher needs to have a relationship with the families, they're not going to feel like, I choose my friends. And it's not that they have to be friends of the families. They are going to have a goal-oriented relationship, you know, in which we are true partners in the education of those kids. Anybody else?
Well, I've just been taking in, observing, listening to everyone, and I think that still at times there's a disconnect when it comes to family engagement and educators. And I heard what you said about not lowering the expectations, but when you come from a school with extreme poverty and violence and stuff like that, I come from I taught at Robert Lee High School in Montgomery. It was the only shooting inside the building. When you had that aspect of learning that some of those parents, just like here, work at Hardee's, KFC, and different, and making minimum wage, the disconnect, I feel, is mental illness, extreme poverty, kids, parents who also had IEPs. So I hear all the things that we want to do for family engagement, but we have to understand there's a critical piece there that's majorly, is missed. And I observe teachers, even at school, I'm an instructional leader at, they think that the kid's supposed to come with all these different things, skills and expectations that they should, but they don't. And I can sit in an IEP meeting and sometimes educators doing what they have to do with anxiety and nerves. They miss the fact that this parent is low functioning, don't understand the clue of what's going on, and they expect to be a connection, and it's not. You know, with mental illness and kids with that are at risk of failing, it's a generational curse to a certain degree. And we have to all put that in and figure out how to merge that. Having an open door policy, even if it's just coming to the game for now. Sometimes coaches bridge that gap.
Yeah,
Coaches bridge that gap, because I can remember dealing with 30 kids and only one parent showed up as a high school head wrestling coach. And I would ask those questions, why aren't your parents coming? And some of them would say, you know, I only have a mom, but she can't afford the $5 to get in the game. So then I had to realize then to make extra fundraising money, and I hate to say it, but to make sure that the parents got in.
Good for you. I agree with you, but I really think that we need to keep our expectations really high. And that school that I told you at the beginning, we had about 98% of the students receiving free lunches. It was about 90% of the students learning English. We never moved them, of course, because nobody was at grade levels, and they never moved from that level 3. We had like 10 or 15% of the students, which is high, with special education. But we had, we used to say in our meetings, no blame, no shame, no excuses. Like we were all the time really trying and with having our expectations really high. Because we have to make sure our parents they have aspirations, they want the best for their children, even if they are, if they have an IEP.
So, but I also have to realize, in doing so for the first 2 years I taught at Robert Lee, I opened up the youth center, and I sat down with the mayors and the commissioners to realize what the need was. So I had brand new everything, and I had a lot of funding coming in from my youth center called Peace on the Streets Tutoring and Training. My expectations was to make sure they had tutoring after school, because from 3 o'clock to 6 or 7 o'clock in the afternoon.
And we're gonna talk about that.
Yes,
On that
so
Friday.
that was.
It's coming, it's coming.
So I had to sit down and figure out what my expectation was, because at the end of the day, I had to make sure I fought for those at-risk kids when nobody else did.
Dr. Price?
Yeah, I just want to say, comment on what both of them said. In the Connecticut definition, the word equitable was there, in that every parent doesn't need the same thing, and just like we differentiate instruction, we'll have to differentiate what we do with parents. And family engagement also, in my expectation and definition, goes beyond teaching the parent, because that's why we have like a mental health services coordinator now. If there are dynamics that are beyond the academics or what's happening in the classroom that's affecting the child, as a school system, we find out how we can help, how we can engage those parents with the right resources to make sure that they're getting what they need to in turn be able to help us help the child. So, you know, I don't like the word equal, I like the word equitable. Right. Because we need to figure out what everybody needs and then engage them to the point that we're providing those resources that they need. So I'm with you, we need to keep the expectations high, but we also need to realize that everybody doesn't need the same thing.
I got a slide that I'll show you when we come back from lunch. I'll pull, it's not in this presentation, but it depicts what the child comes with is what the child comes with, and sometimes extra support is needed. And that, what you're talking about when there's, you know, mental illness especially, or it's deeper in connections to still, but we're gonna look at some research here in a minute that helps us to see that, again, if we're looking at things through a strength-based lens, what can we do to tap the assets that the family does have, right?
I think if you say set the expectations high, I mean, high from where? You know, like you can't set expectations not having knowledge of where to start from. You know, so you have to be realistic.
Well, like the progress monitoring that the child was showing her mom. If she would have just gone home with a 43, be like, what does that mean, right? But it shows, and that gives us a different lens by which to look at our grading practices too, right? And that the child has voice, and the parent has voice, or the family member has voice in what they're doing. Absolutely. I had another soapbox, but I forgot it. I'll find it.
Okay, so really quick, because we are super behind. The differences between involvement and engagement. Can somebody read the first one?
One-way communication.
Two. It's a two-way, right?
Two-way
Do it that way. Read it.
Right, from one-way communication to two-way communication. So one-way communication could be letters, you know, or Facebook, blah, blah, blah. Two-way communication is listening to the parents of their concern.
You guys have said that already. Good job.
Oops, sorry. Second one, school designed activities too?
Co-created activities.
Co-created activities. So we're gonna work together to create those activities. 3, exclusive. 2, inclusive, everybody. Not the group of 2 or 3 PTO parents that do everything, right? Everybody. To do, 2. Do 2, I'm sorry, 2. Do with, right? The last one, select group of families or active parents. 2, partnership, right? Partnership, and working together.
Cool. All right. You ready to get into some research? Doesn't that sound fun? Come on. Okay. I want you guys to number off. You think we can count to 5? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? So, 1, 2,
3.
say it louder. 4.
1, 2, 3,
4.
1,
2,
3.
4, 5,
1.
2,
3.
4.
5,
1.
1's right here. 2, 3 in the back. 4, 5.
Now I'm gonna get to the map.
You'll be back. I sort of say back there, but I know it's not right there.
All on the same table.
What number you want?
Is it our staff or just our mods?
Yes, ma'am.
But I wouldn't stand up right after.
Once you get where you're going, we'll explain. Fours are here.
Well, we just thought that we wanted to.
All right. Each group has its own set of research, right? So everybody at this table has the same one, okay? What I want you to do is we're going to take about 8 minutes. You with me? 8 minutes. You guys read it. Just read it to yourself. What we're going to do is have you create a small presentation, okay, as a team. So you're going to read it by yourself, then you're going to discuss it at your table. These are the questions that I want you to answer. And then you're going to pick a spokesperson at your table to share what or who did they study. 3 key findings. That's the biggest part of this, right? 3 key findings. Are there any traditional assumptions that come out in this research that has debunked family engagement, right? Like what we normally think about or what we have traditionally thought about. And how can you use this information in your practice? So 8 minutes and read to yourself. And then as a table, we're going to take another 5 or 6 minutes to discuss it. I'm going to be passing out chart paper, and then you'll put your little presentation to answer these questions together, okay? y'all get finished reading, you know, wanna go ahead and start discussing, you can do that.
Do you guys want me or somebody to write the questions out there and then let's just write them on here, or how do you want to do it? I mean, somehow we'll do it, or what,
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying, yeah, just, and then leave room for us to maybe answer up under it.
When you're ready to start discussing, you've got that chart paper, and I want you to answer these questions so that we can put it on the board and get everybody in together.
First one was what or who was research? Second grade or eighth grade. And then it also said. Yeah. And they received a tail reading. Yes.
I got that over, and then I got not attending any school.
And then it also was necessary to like, in high school, majority will like. Yeah. What they say.
Yeah, what you have to, we got work ethic, we got the importance of education, we got cultural differences, the differences of what you're involved in.
With that, we specifically looked at how.
Feel free to go ahead and get it up on a board. It's 10:49, at 11 o'clock, we're gonna start our presentation.
They specifically looked at administrative school outreach. Check out my entry.
What is the first, like, what is school study?
I'm gonna go ahead and put it all off, it's easier, that's fine. Or that's fine. Yeah, everyone do it.
Okay, so like summarize them, like. Yeah, that is so true. We see that a lot around.
Involving research and support for the school, too. Number one is, families participating already participating.
Yeah, we just.
But it's a word involved, no matter what, it did help. Yeah, parents are more highly, whose parents are more highly involved, more likely to make gains to get this degree.
Then we got.
School council have strong power.
What tradition
Kids are
is
gonna
that?
behave, teachers gonna
Say that, Taylor,
Parent involvement in pieces with support.
substantially up. What tradition is 32.
limestone county. So those 5 years.
How long have you been in?
What do we say? Additional meeting,
Has higher grades than you're not engaged.
So there's a positive correlation between.
Yeah, how incomes are not, what does it say? A family income does not affect their level of involvement. Because I mean, we think, okay, well,
Positive effects
Identified schools
success
and
is higher grades of
of
engagement.
those two groups of schools. And the no trend, all right, can we start with that? Or should I mention?
Positive correlation,
But that's,
positive effect of partnership.
Or is that under the?
right, said, okay,
Of partnership and student success.
and then those factors there will what?
They took a look back, and they got two groups, right?
Student success.
The no trend.
we were on the last one, how do you use this info? So we said, don't make assumptions, keep your expectations high.
Substantially up.
And then I also think acknowledge.
Use some of specifically that yield higher
Now,
grades.
findings are,
There is a different level,
what
Better
did they find of
attendance
those that they had?
I would appreciate it. I know.
Substantially
She said she wanted to
low
present, but we need everybody else.
Had what?
Oh my God.
Had improved what?
Are there any more overachievers that need an extra page?
I almost did.
Increased preparation.
Alright, what else?
Look, y'all.
According to teacher ratings was more.
Oh, okay.
The big assumption
When
about
I read that, I was like,
is that parents are what?
I thought there was a rule that you don't use, you know.
how about we do it easy?
But parents are not hands off. But parents are hands
Supervisors, principals were what?
I saw that.
Supervisors.
I mean,
What if you got the traditional, yeah, kids sit right to,
And rated.
like, we all don't have one.
That's right. We're not little exploding thing on the screen up there that tells me.
I got a little thing right here.
Alright, so I guess you can draw a little space for a fourth one.
they don't hear what
Sorry.
comes from it. How are you gonna use it in practice?
How are we gonna use this in our practice?
Yeah, and decision making, and they don't like, what can we say about parents? The parents was, oh, the parents were just, yeah.
Increased contact.
Well, I guess they felt more involved with the
Participation.
parents and the principal and
And the parents that were on the committee were both on my committee. And so it's like, instead of a governing body, instead of it being one internship,
I think there's a generation.
So we need to put together that.
They don't want new stuff to
No,
to the community.
Equals, for example, equals. Here's later in life, following up on
3 minutes.
To me, it's like scholarship is win-lose, that if you have a strong principal, you don't need strong parents. You should, well, sometimes I'll get strong leaders to indulge and then
The message of strong leadership and the principle
that's
is
leadership.
You always want something to be a little bit better.
something else right.
Okay, you find yourself, even though I'm complaining about that, there are moments where I'm like, I was doing
The study found that cooperative. Even without the higher schools where, or it was that, it was more successful. I'm stepping Okay, awesome.
And I have one leaving you, but she talked to me right here.
Oh, me? I hope that's not bad.
No, it's all right.
I've probably seen.
I was prepared for all the
president of Minnesota. She's going to talk to you about some different things.
He's in 8th grade, and Barris is at he's in 3rd grade. It makes me feel but my husband is not
1 minute.
Give me the
and I'm like, I got to get her
Forward, make sure when you're making decisions that you're looking at every part, you're looking at the community aspect, the parent aspect, the teacher aspect, and the student aspect.
And it's something to trust them.
Absolutely.
Even if they don't have the education background. But then at the time, you know what makes sense?
About the child as a whole is what it consider all the stakeholders when making decisions. I mean, that's kind of an easy way to do it. You can get rid of all my
I mean, we can consider that model of FLS.
Yes. But even students tomorrow, maybe we'll get a decision, consider all the stakeholders.
Okay, have you designated or voluntold somebody in your group?
I mean, that's not,
What is it, 3, 2, 1? Have you designated, voluntold somebody in your group? Okay. Let's do Lopez. Who has Lopez? You guys have Lopez? Batter up. So,
it was really good. I mean, and then we had conversation afterwards that was really good. This is the best table here. I'm talking about tables. But, so ours was about 4 immigrants, and migrant families, but they were highly successful students. And so that's who they did the study on, 4 different families. And so we saw that the biggest thing was their definition of parent involvement. So it wasn't the typical involvement going into the schools and so forth, but for them, their importance was education and then also their life lessons. So they started their kids when they were really little, having to come and see them working as migrant workers and expressing to them, this is not what you want. And in order for you to be better than what we are, you've got to be educated. And so that instilled, and then as young kids, this is what I need to do in order to be educated. And I need to stay in school. So that's the way that they were involved in their kids' education. And we put that, the third part was that traditional definition of parent involvement was not their same. So like attending school functions was not their definition of parent involvement, but having them start out the workforce and seeing what is it going to be like if you don't have that education. And then the last part, things that we need to do is pay attention to cultural differences at the schools. And don't be discouraged if everyone doesn't fit the norm. If everybody, and I think as educators, we often do that. If they don't come, well, you don't want to be a part of. Not realizing they do work at SAM, but they work from 7 to 7, they don't get off to 7 p.m. And then you want them to still watch a webinar or, come visit a school and they're tired. They, stood on their foot all day and got a 30-minute lunch break. But for this family, they didn't go to those meetings. They didn't go to because they couldn't. For many of them being migrant families and going all over the place to make ends meet. And the last one we put was everyone's definition of parent involvement is different. And like I said, maybe even the keys to find out what do you feel like you need to do to be involved, and just to see what parents have to say. For them, it would be maybe making sure my child's dressed. And making sure I sign their folders when I have time to, sign their folders. Or even signing a report card when they, return it. I'm involved because I'm signing it, So that's a big deal. So it was really good to see how they decided what parent involvement was. Just letting their kids know that you're going to be educated a different way. And let them know education is very important so you don't have to do what we're doing.
Good job. Good job. And I failed to mention, you need to do this in 3 minutes, and you guys did it. So, great synthesis about information. And it's kind of like what I said earlier, what she said, you got to know your families, right? We don't know what we can't see, and when we know, we're able to capitalize on that strength, right? We talked about strength-based. Good job, guys. Do you guys have Pena?
Yes.
Pena, up to bat, 3 minutes.
Well, we dealing with the Mexican American families and a school with year-round with multi-age and dual language programs. And basically, what we deal with in the school system today is the assumption of things that we think about when it comes to families and stuff like that. And the key finding was to account for all parents' preferences, school staff attitudes need to be changed, including the principal. Only in this article. Only in this article. Providing parents with a range of opportunities to be involved. 3 assumptions. Parents know what to do for various events and activities. Sometimes we assume that parents know these things. However, with some of the parents on our articles, they prefer English, but once they got into the meetings or whatnot, they didn't communicate effectively back to because of language barriers. Parents understand the conversation. Parents that did not show up or do not want to be involved. So we just made in this article we talked about the assumption of just because a few parents were there doesn't mean they speak for all the parents. And so this assumption overall, and 4, being open-minded, observant, ask the parents what they need, raise awareness, change the mindset, attitude that hinders. So.
Good job. So yeah, what what this article does and what they've synthesized about it is that, you know, is what we do representative of the cultures of the families that come into our building? If you've got a large Vietnamese population, do you have welcoming signs that are in that language to help them understand and see that you value them and that you want to include them? And that assumption I loved. You shouldn't just assume that families know how. Like, for example, if my child's in elementary school and this is my first child, and you tell me, well, just read at home. Just read at home with your kid. What does that look like? Show me. I'm an educated person, and I don't have any children, but I was a reading buddy at a school, and I didn't know the best way to do that. I mean, I could sit and read with the kid, but what is the best way to do that? Do I sit across from them? Do I sit next to them? Do I, use my finger to follow it? And how long do I let them struggle with the word? Show me how to do that, and don't assume that I know how, right? And the language of that should be one of support, not one of, well, obviously you don't know how to do this, so that's a deficit. Okay? Strength-based, right? Wow, look at us right on time. Good job. Let's do Simon. Who's got Simon? Oh, I'm gonna have to keep you on. Okay.
What?
I got you.
Alrighty then. Alright, so who, what? We were studying family involvement among teens and high school. I can't do it like that.
Yeah, just leave that there, you're good.
Okay, so family involvement in high school teens, and specifically one of the studies that part of the study did looked at school outreach and what came from school outreach. The three key findings, families already participate in the range of activities at high school. That was one of the biggest assumptions. People said they weren't, but they actually were. Number two, parent involvement increases with support from the school. What part of the study they said is the more that the school did, of course, the higher that the parent involvement came up. Positive effects of the partnership on student success. This specifically, a couple of areas that we pointed out were related to higher grades in math and English, better attendance, better behavior, and most importantly for her, if you have ever had high school kids, increased preparation for class. So, what was the third one? What traditional assumptions? Well, the biggest traditional assumption was parents are hands-off. That was completely debunked because they were already there. It's just people weren't looking for how they were there. And how to use the information moving forward. How are we going to use this? One thing is increased contact. So the increased contact had a direct and positive correlation with participation and student success. And we also wanted to point out one of the ones that was in our last part of our page was, I'm going to read this part from it. It says that students and families deserve research-based partnership programs to ensure student success in high school and later in life. And we thought that should imply that school and district follow up on student success after graduation to see how they're moving in and out of the community, because those will become our parents, and then they will inform the next generations.
Nice job. Good job, guys. So yeah, this article was about high school, right? So I think there's an assumption that as students get in high school that family engagement doesn't matter. That's not true. We see by the evidence here that it is true. It will look different in high school than it will in middle and elementary. It starts looking different in middle school, but it's not any less important, right? Maximizing and not assuming. Good job, guys. And our buzzer still hasn't gone off. You really talked to people. All right. Let's see, who do we have? We haven't done more.
All right. Okay, so our study looked at a 7-year study that a school system or school systems implemented local school councils. They call them LSCs, but basically they consist of a governing board for that school, and they it was 6 parents, and those are voted on. And I want to make sure that I say this part because this was kind of cool. So it's elected by parents and the local residents. 2 were community leaders. They were elected by parents and local residents. 2 teachers were elected by the school staff, the school principal, and then a student at the high school level was voted on and elected by the student body. Okay, so you've got a governing body for the school, and if you look over that, that's not a whole lot who are education background folks. right? These are your community leaders, your parents that are leading the decision-making within the schools. And we're talking choosing who the principal is, the school budget, the school improvement plan, all of that is governed by this group. And so the key findings, they did the 7-year study, and you looked at the no trend schools versus the substantially up, just meaning that they improved in reading achievement. So they called them substantially up. The others were not, and they wanted to know what's different here. And so what they found was that in the schools, with the LSCs, the principals were seen as, they were highly favored, okay, they were highly rated, and they were also seen as being more of your support for the change. They were your change agents in your schools. And then the teachers felt way more involved in the decision-making process, and so did your parents. And so some of the myths that they busted through this study was that school leadership in the principal is win-lose. And it's basically stating that if you got a strong principal, you don't really have to have the parent involvement, because the principal's just going to take charge and take over, and it's going to be successful. And they found that that's not true. That if you've got a strong LSC in that school, that you could have a weaker principal and still be very, very successful for that school, because you've just got more buy-in. And when you've got people in and out of those positions, you still got that governing body that is just kind of leading the way. It's established. It's not just in that school, it's in that whole community. And so how can we use this? We talked about considering stakeholders in our decision-making process, but also trusting those stakeholders in the decision-making process, that even if they don't come from that education background, that they're still very much, they know their children better than we will know their children. And they add a very important element to the school system, and consistency.
Good job, guys. I don't care what you call it, LSC, whatever. What you see in this study is that the building a culture of collaboration within the adults in the building helps to improve student achievement. Good job. All right, Shaver.
I was gonna say, I think we're the only ones.
Yeah. Pinch hitting. Go ahead.
So our study looked at Title I involvement in regards to math and reading achievements. So it was 335 Title I students, grades 2nd through 8th. They were in West Virginia, which is typically looked at as a lower income type place. They did have to have, help with reading and math, and the majority of these students were of a white race. The 3 key findings were that income level didn't matter when it came to level of involvement. Parents were more involved at an elementary level. They saw the lower grades, 2nd through 5th. It seemed like they were more involved than the higher up to 8th grade. And the more involved parents did make an impact on improvement. Traditional assumptions that were debunked, income level overall doesn't affect involvement. We talked about that a lot earlier. How do we use this information? Don't make assumptions. Keep your expectations high, regardless. Again, depending on where we start with an expectation level and where that goes. And then let your findings guide your implementation. If you've got all these research studies and they're telling you these things, we obviously need to do something with that. The end.
You got it.
I said
Good job. Yeah, so back to our whole, looking at our families in poverty and what we think about that, and how, we need to kind of check ourselves. And another thing that I'd like to say about this particular research study is kind of that doing to our families instead of doing with our families, right? And we'll talk about this in the process conditions, but really taking your events and the opportunities that you have with your families, whatever those might look like, and making them engaging and making them interactive. I think we're getting this because you're in the mix with it, right? I'm not just sitting here telling you what the research says. That's how we get our hands dirty as adults, and that study shows us that we have to make those adjustments if we want our families to be able to use their strengths to help their children succeed. Good job, everybody. Give me a hand. I would hire you as a research assistant any day. All right, go back to your seats, and then we're gonna spend the last 1 minute over. Look at that. Maybe we should just turn this on all the time. Maricella's gonna finish us up talking about some impacts, and then we'll head to lunch.
I gotta go see Chris. Go get my fight with the
So, there are tons of research that shows that family engagement is the key. And I always think that it's like when you are dieting, you want to lose some weight, you know what you are not supposed to eat, right? But you still eat it. So the research is the same. Research is the same. And we know there are tons of research. This is just 5 of them. There are tons of research that prove that we need to engage our families. So let's look at the impact of those research. I mean, we're going to try to go really fast on this. Can someone read the first bullet?
One of the core strategies in the SEC had 24% fewer absences than similar students whose families did not receive it.
And on the video that we saw, this lady, Jessica Solano, was doing a home visit. And when we think about home visits, it's kind of, really, do we really need to go to their houses, you know? But it works. It really worked. When I was doing my dissertation, I had the opportunity to visit some of my families for my qualitative analysis. And they were so proud, like when they were receiving me, I know that there were teams in their house, and they were so like grateful that I took that time to go to their houses. So it's something that we need to keep in mind.
I want to ask you a quick question. I'm sorry. This is a district question. Do you guys have a home visit policy?
We do not.
And what is that? I know that's a sticky, kind of a sticky situation. I get it. This FEP stands for the Family Engagement Partnership, and this study was done out of Johns Hopkins. I can find this research and send that to you if it would be helpful. Okay, I'll make a note to do that.
And sometimes you don't need to visit like all of your families, but you can visit those 2 or 3 that need to build that relationship with you. How about number 2, the second one? Somebody else.
The same students were more likely to read at or above grade level compared to similar students who did not receive a home visit.
So they increase, right? And started to read at grade level. So we saw that change. So this is the other book that Dr. Mapp wrote, and I really like it because this one has a lot of stories that we can call evidence, right? From teachers and parents, and that give you their input. Can I have someone read that? But you're gonna need to go there.
You want me to do it since I'm closer? Sure. Okay. This is a note from Eileen. Eileen co-wrote this book with Dr. Mapp and was in the classroom a number of years. And this is Jorge's reading progress. Jorge entered our 2nd grade classroom as a new student to the school. He is an English learner, and Spanish is the language spoken at home. When Jorge arrived, he didn't yet know any of the sounds that letters make. On a reading assessment in late September, he scored at an early kindergarten level. Remember, this is a 2nd grader. At the mid-October family conference, both Jorge and his mother were in tears. It was devastating to be 7 years old and not be able to read. During the conference, Jorge set a goal to improve his reading. He pledged to read every day, or every chance he got, and his mother promised to sit with Jorge each night and to listen to him read. Jorge joined a reading intervention group at school, and I sent home many books for him to read. Exchanging the books as he mastered them, In less than 2 months, Jorge could identify all the sounds the letters make, and he had increased his reading by 2 levels in late November. Jorge was reading at the end of kindergarten level, with 6 months of the school year still ahead. At the next family conference, Jorge's mother spoke about how she renewed her commitment to listen to Jorge read at home once she understood its importance. Without a doubt, Jorge's ability to make reading progress was multiplied by the homeschool connection.
So what was the change of that, on that mom mindset? She changed what? It says, it is at the end.
She understood the importance.
She understood the importance. And sometimes when we have those parents, because that mom probably didn't speak English. When we have those parents, we are like, well, if they don't speak English, how are they going to help? They do. They figure it out. They go online, they figure it out, the sounds, they figure it out, like stories, they figure it out. They just need to understand the importance of what is going on and where their child is and how to help them. So impact on students, and we saw that on our research. Who can read the first one?
Exhibit faster rates of literacy acquisition.
Yeah, because we have those parents helping at home, right? So they increase, they acquire the literacy faster. Number 2?
Earn higher grades and test scores.
We know that, right? We don't need research. We don't even need research to know that. We know when parents are involved, kids get higher grades. Number 3?
Enroll in higher level programs.
We have those kids in high school enroll to those honor classes, right? Next one?
Are promoted and more than earn more credits.
Exactly. We know that. We don't need research. We know it. Next one?
Adapt better to school and attend more regularly.
When we see absences, we don't know what's going on at home, right? Next?
Have better social skills and behavior.
Can we change that? Yes? And the last one?
Graduate and go on to higher education.
That's right. And remind me your name,
Ventrice.
When you said that what is higher expectations for you, that is higher expectation for me. That is to have higher expectations, to make sure that every student that graduates from my district is going to be able to go to college, is ready to go to college. Those are my expectations. Every child.
Write this down. Family engagement is a strategy, not the goal. Family engagement is the strategy, not the goal.
All right, we're gonna continue reading. Who wants to read the first one?
Families' perception of their job description shifts their role construction.
All right, what do you think about that one?
I think it should say job expectation instead of job description. Expectations are different than descriptions.
And you know what, I was thinking when we were talking about poverty, my mom's family was really, really poor. My mom said, back in Venezuela, my mom said that the only furniture they had in their house was a bench, a wooden bench, that was it. Her mom was illiterate. My mom finished only 6th grade. But I remember my mom saying that for her mom, like what was important for them, for her, was for my mom to be fed, never go to bed hungry, and going to school with clean clothes. So sometimes that was my grandmother's job description. Making sure that they ate and they have clothes. That's it, clean clothes. So changing that, like telling those parents, there's a little more than that, you know, that you can do to make sure that your kids are going to be successful. That is important, and that is probably our job. Because for my grandmother, probably that was it. That's all I need to do, right? How about the second one?
Families gain confidence in their ability to shape and influence their children's learning and development, their self-efficacy.
And that's the capacity that we're going to build. That they feel that they can really help. The next one?
Families develop an increased self of accountability to their school or neighborhood and advocate for all children versus just their children.
What do you think about that one? It takes a village, right? I needed my friend who was the one telling me, hey, we have a meeting tonight. There is a early release. I usually forget about it. It takes a village. And sometimes we can help our families to build that community. Making sure that they exchange their phone numbers and they help each other. How about the next one?
Families are empowered to take on new challenges in terms of their education careers.
What do you think?
Kind of goes back to that second one, that confidence in their ability, that they feel like they can be a part, like they have some importance.
I think about Jorge, and though his mom spoke only Spanish, she thought she couldn't help him, but just her devoting that time, building her confidence that her time was enough to sit with him, even though she might not have understood what he read, or maybe he was reading books in Spanish too. But that confidence, I think.
It almost sounded like they signed a contract, like he made a goal and she signed it and agreed together. And so, I mean, even having that paperwork, hey, this is what we decided on.
And how about the last one?
Families link their personal growth with civic and political action.
Do you want to say something about that one? Because
It's
comes to my mind.
that could be a can of worms, right? But it goes back to the confidence, like Stacy was saying. I think all of those go back when we build confidence. Like even today, you may have learned something already that has given you confidence that you want to go back and do. And when you feel confident, you feel like your presence, your participation matters. And that bleeds not only into what happens in the school building, but in the community as well.
So we have one more minute.
So let's do
we have a video.
let's watch this video real quick.
And then we're gonna keep in mind what we saw there and discuss this when we come back.
I send a postcard, a personal postcard to each parent at the beginning of the year, telling them how to reach me, but also that I'm excited to work with their student. And I send home paperwork with contact information and make it a grade for kids to get it back to me so that they are sort of motivated. I tell kids, you know, you're the link between me and your parent, and we all have to work together to facilitate this conversation.
There's no doubt about it, studies have showed it, if a parent is involved in their kid's education, the student is going to be a better student. Plain and simple, the student is gonna have a better chance to succeed in life.
When I have a contact with the parents and they get involved so closely in the school, I can have more of the background of each one of the students. And knowing the background of them from their countries, their situation, it's much more satisfying. I give more of myself. I give more as a teacher, I give more as a person.
When a teacher tells me that they have too many kids and they can't find the time to communicate with a parent, I always ask them, so is that your expectation from your child's teacher? You're a teacher. You expect the best for your own children. So why wouldn't you give that to somebody else's child?
It's a core activity of teaching. It's not optional. If you care about your students' success, and if you're a teacher, you do, then you have to make time.
I do admit that, you know, when teachers have a large caseload on their hands, obviously it complicates things. It makes things a little bit tougher. But at the end of the day, if our goal is to come in here and make sure that each child receives their education and walks out of here, you know, ready to take on the world, it's incumbent upon us to make sure that we're doing our job the right way.
Teaching is a hard job. I mean, there's no way around that. And there definitely are days where even someone like me that like wakes up excited to go to work every day feels a little deflated and demoralized at the end of the day if it hasn't gone well, or you're worried about particular kids. And knowing that you have the parent as a partner, you know, is so encouraging. You know, you don't feel like you're kind of like going it alone with the students and trying to meet all these needs on your own, and you've kind of got each other's backs, and that's always a good feeling, to feel supported and partnered, you know, as you work on something really difficult, which is growing kids up to be successful and happy.
I just got off the phone with a parent, and the parent told me, Mr. Valoria, I want to thank you very much for all the hard work you've done with my daughter. Without you, I'm quoting here, without you, I don't know where my daughter would be. When you get comments like that, it does something to you inside that I can't even describe. It's like, you know what, I'm doing the right thing, I'm here for a purpose, I'm making a difference in somebody's life, in a whole family's lives. Because again, this is something that's affecting not only the student, it's affecting the parents, it's affecting the younger siblings who are taking up, you know, looking up to their older siblings. So it's one of those things where it really makes a difference. It motivates me to continue to work harder and to continue to involve and engage families in their kids' education.
Thoughts? Especially on the mic drop, right? Anything resonate with anybody? Whether you're secondary or not, right? That was secondary folks talking.
It's a domino effect, ripple effect.
It's important to start that school year off with a positive touch to the families.
I like that postcard touch, yeah.
And a postcard's so much more personal than an email, you know?
Yeah.
If it makes it home.
Well, you have to write on a postcard.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, I mean, everybody sends home a paper that they printed and signed, or maybe they didn't even sign it, you know?
But you may or may not read.
The postcard is a personal touch.
You guys use Class Dojo?
Yes.
Yes. I love it.
The what?
Class Dojo. It is, I really love it. It is a good way to like communicate with parents, and you know, it is amazing. And parents like it too.
What age group are you speaking of? Like high schoolers?
Usually, yeah, no, elementary.
I think even for middle school and high school age,
Yeah.
the teachers that have same students, like that pod or that group or whatever, those teachers working together for that one student or that one, whatever, that one family, I think that's a crucial thing. That's literally a village with one student. And so, man, they could alleviate some of that pressure that I have too many kids.
I use it for even special education.
Yeah.
And we share the same group of students, the speech teacher and myself. So
Yeah.
it is a way to be in communication.
I can't remember which one of them, but one of them said something about you're not just helping the student, you're helping the family. And I just think about in a city like Alexander City where we've had to reinvent ourselves because of an industry leaving and all of that, and the secondary students are the next ones, you know, they're the next ones up. They're on deck to, you know, I think that, you know, it's crucial that we not just engage families, but also community partners, community leaders, because to know what kind of jobs are needed and all of that. You know, we're not just helping the students, we're helping the family, in turn, we're helping the community.
Right.
And if you plan on staying here for a while, you should be invested in that and engaged in that.
And that's the whole component, not just of college, but
Mhm.
career ready too,
Exactly.
because it's those students who will be our next generation of
Right.
community partners.
And that may come back here because of the support that we offer to their families
Sure.
and them as kids, they may come back.
And talk about sustainability,
Exactly.
that's the. All right, y'all ready to eat? Okay, it's 11:36, be back at 12:36, not 12:40. 12:36.
Yeah, I'll take it. My name is Carla Jake, other than summer,
Okay, that's personal.
The weather people is the only job you can have where you're wrong all the time, people still believe you. And listen.
You do know.
Civil rights.
I think I'm gonna go see if they want to follow me.
You got parents at home, reading, just me sitting down and be able to read and